Hmm. Respect my authority. What to say, Tarek? Yeah, I don't even get Richard Tarek. They're a douchebag. But big, giant hand. Let me see. Anyway, big, mighty. Always got to remember something. Where's the microphone? Oh, got the microphone. All right. There we go. Who says I'm not a professional? Anyway, um, keyboard I probably don't need. Oh, lots of trouble lately. The crappy computer that sometimes mostly works but didn't just didn't just decide to stop working yesterday. Well, last night. Well, this afternoon. Um, just so irritating. So I mean, it'll probably work, but it won't be until tomorrow. Um, but then the whole website thing, I got to make a GoDaddy video, I suppose. But it's what a pain in the ass. So they ruined all my websites, and so I got to rebuild them all, and can't FTP, so you have to use their crappy software, and it just, well, whatever. Won't even go into the saga, but they're also full of shit. There's just so much, there's just people full of shit everywhere. It's just, it really is just such a blight on the human race. All the full of shitters really do fuck life up. Speaking of Ken, yeah, there's one of his videos to play. I suppose I haven't listened to it yet, but I just thought I might do that. But might read some comments here, and we'll see how things go from there. Yeah, I just haven't had any time. Didn't get to work on my software at all because I have to do all this fixing of things. And the weather's turned cold, and just it's all quite dismal. And then I got a friend whose cat had kittens in her yard, and just so everything's so horrible and tragic and disgusting. This life thing is just not for regular people. It's not for anybody decent. It's just such a bad idea. A living thing. All right, so I'm going to try to move this over here so it's out of my way, so I have a clear view of things, and so I don't screw something up in particular. So let's see if this tab is the chat, and this tab is the comments. Well, I guess I can do without chatting for a while. Anyway, I suppose I could screen share, but I don't know if you can read them unless I do something to make the screen share bigger or something. Let's see if it's worth the trouble. It does screw up the sync, so what the hell? We'll just leave it alone, I think. Anyway, so this is the Miles Mathis in person. Yeah, now, the Miles Mathis that has me captivated, seeing people and events from a different angle that I never thought of. Oh, you mean you actually believe this conspiracy kook? Anyway. I mean, Miles Mathis, like I said, until I saw his regular public page full of every conspiracy theory on Earth, I had some respect for him. But no, he's a Fruit Loop. Or was able to see. Well, I wonder what you looked like. Well, you could just look at his page and you'll see what he looks like. You're like the guy who broke loose from Plato's cave. Yes, well, whatever. Thank you. I'm very impressed. You opened my eyes. You're way more intelligent than me and anybody I know. Now, except I'm not Miles Mathis. So, yeah. So he says, not Miles Mathis. And he says, oh, okay. I could say something like, oh, well, you're still doing very well. Continue. But, can't have everything. Well, can't have anything, really. All right, so this is some skeptic cunt. Has an icon of a guitar, so he's pretending to be cool when he's an asshole. So because, in capital letters with an arrow, I don't know what the hell that means, just to get your attention, I didn't really do that, I'm going to explain to you why the first argument that you speak about is wrong by a simple word only. resonance. Yeah, well, that's that whole whatever his loop-de-doo name is, and go out there and type resonance on YouTube, and you'll find a bunch of nutters who think they're going to make perpetual energy and do all this thing with this crazy resonance stuff, and they're all crazy. I mean, you watch 2 minutes of their videos, and they're frickin' Fruit Loops. You know what's a Cody? I don't know what that is. Canode on the vibrating string. A canard. I don't know. Well, these are the same canards in 2D and 3D resonance. Well, again, you don't even know what a resonance is. I mean, resonance just means it bounces around, okay? And so when you bounce something, you can bounce things in sequence. Like I could throw tennis balls at exactly perfect 1 minute or 1 second intervals, and then they'll bounce in a pattern. And if I bounce them in the right place, then that pattern will duplicate. The second ball will be exactly in sync with the first ball, and the third ball will be in sync with the fourth ball, and that kind of stuff will happen every Todd. And then if I make the box smaller and smaller, you see, then the frequency will go up, and what will appear to be, and the energy will go up. But technically, it's not really energy going up. They are what makes you think there is particles. Well, I don't know. That doesn't have anything to do with me thinking they're particles, resonance. But you know what is funny about all this? What, patronizing cunt? Particle guys are actually, spelled wrong, right, saying there is something there. That's right. It is legitimate to call it a particle. Well, it's legitimate to call it something besides a frickin' Fruit Loop fairy. But not in the case of light, though. Light is absolutely an electrical phenomenon, which that doesn't mean anything. Electrical phenomenon. So you really think lightning's made out of nothing. You don't think there actually is electrons flying into ions, smashing the atoms a little bit, producing more electrons, creating a kind of chain reaction of chemical reaction. That there's actual chemistry creating the lightning that you see. The visual effect is actually a chemical effect, kind of like fire. You think fire's made out of nothing? You think those are nothings that's flying into the air? Anyway. Anyways, the truth is either, okay, I guess that's what it's supposed to be, on both sides. Well, that doesn't make any sense as a sentence. It's retarded. I mean, the real one truth, IKE, pure consciousness, which means absolutely, absolutely nothing. Why don't you just say pure fairy dust? I mean, consciousness is just a brain function. It's an illusion created in your brain. Everything that you are is, the theaters is completely not material. It's made of matter, but it doesn't have any material representation in the sense that it's a theater made of an abstraction. So it's the idea of a theater, the idea of a chair, and the idea of an idiot sitting in it. And that's all you really are, is an idea the brain manufactures. It's still a real phenomenon, but it has nothing to do with any of this crap you're talking. Anyway, reality causes their reality. Pure conscious, period, reality, period. Well, it might be a comma, but I can't tell. Cause there's only one truth after all, ... says you putz cunt. And rationality is the skull given to us to reach consciousness, whatever that means, or the language given to read the universe. Oh, that is just such a pile of goo. Fuck you. I wish I could kill you in a proper gladiator war, because you're just too fucking arrogant to talk such drivel. Absolutely unsubstantiated mush. You demonstrate nothing with this mush. It's just fucking mush. So anyway, the Superior Mind guy left a rather long comment. I don't know if I'll read it, because I'll just read it poorly, but you should go to read it. because he basically explains my theory in his words and does a reasonably good job of it. And very well done. Thank you. Okay, see who is real. See who the real Ken Wheeler is here. Yeah, so there's a link to a video. This is an A guy. Yeah, I don't know if that video is entirely fair, to tell you the truth. Yeah, Ken plays with the truth. There's no doubt about it. And he showed images, but he never really said, I took these pictures. He just implied that they might be his pictures. And, you know, that was kind of bogus. And he obviously did take the watermarks off, and you can't deny that. But I don't know if it's exactly the highest of crimes. He was really just showing how a printer works, and, and he really wasn't. You know, he was trying to make an impression that wasn't honest. So in that sense, he was being dishonest, but it was hardly the height of dishonesty. It was kind of a little dishonesty perpetrated by somebody who's apparently needs credibility points, and so he tried to steal some. And yeah, it's a bogus, but hardly the biggest crime in the world. From the perspective that you don't take him seriously is the time you spend on him. Like, that makes any from the perspective that you don't take him seriously is the time you spend on him and the addiction with Ken abnormal. So again, what percentage of my videos are response videos to Ken? 2%. Hardly an addiction. I probably mentioned Miles Mathis in more videos than Ken. And you think that somebody who's making as bold a statements as Ken, okay, being a great debunker of the horrid institutions of science and education and everything else, somebody should just be allowed to say that crap, and nobody should do any fact checking. Nobody should do any critiquing. They should just get a free pass to be fucktarded cunts. And he is a fucktarded cunt, you little weasel. I mean, why don't you explain why he has a right to call Einstein an imbecile? Why don't you explain where he gets the right to do that? Especially when his argument is rubbish. I mean, it's not like he's proving anything. I mean, I at least go to the trouble to explain how Einstein's lensing experiment was never repeated. You know, I'll explain in detail why something might be incorrect. But again, Ken doesn't even, Ken is a complete asshole in the sense he doesn't even think enough to realize that Einstein's bent space is essentially an ether theory. He's too stupid to even go that far, you fucking weasel. Anyway, if you want to fix false claims, start with errors and the question marks in conventional physics, quote unquote. And I've already done that, asshole. Again, I'm critiquing conventional physics, but I'm critiquing the part that's fairies, and that's the part Ken agrees with. The fairy process of, it's just electrical, it's a coaxial cable, it's a magical little, it just does it, blah, blah. He doesn't explain why anything happens. God did it. The, you know, Tinker Hyperboroid Bell did it. I don't get upset nor offended by your Alice in Wonderland stories. Well, again, you prove nothing. That accusation is just absolute crap in the sense that I obviously haven't described anything crooked or bent. I haven't talked about talking cars. I haven't talked about anything magically being attracted or magically being repulsed. I've talked about real hard things, banging into real hard things, and explained why things happen. I haven't copped out and just said hyperboloid and think I've said something, you fucking weasel. But you, for sure, have smoked some awesome shit in your life. Smiley face. Regardless, so why don't you just say that to everybody you disagree with? You're a drunk. You're a drug addict because you're too big a pussy to put up. So why don't you show up in this goddamn room and talk that shit, retard? Let's see who you are and what your credibility to come to this argument is. How have you demonstrated that you have some right to insult anybody, asshole? Asshole. Fucking cowardice, asshole. All right. So here we go. Since when did making video responses become known as abnormal obsessions? Exactly. I can't pronounce this guy's name. It's in like Arabic or something. Why? Because he takes his time explaining without editing and cutting it down to 10 minutes. What's exactly abnormal? Well, and I don't repeat the same fucking stories over and over and over in that 10 minutes. I mean, fuck, how many microseconds of Ken's videos are an actual explanation of a claim? And the rest of the, most 90% of his videos are just critiques of other people's intelligence, or preposterously awkward obsessions with how bent and crooked their body is, or how naked they are. You Ken fans are so funny. I'm not saying I am 100% on with Amendum, but the pretentious position you all have is fucking annoying. Yeah, well, it's fucking infantile. So these are people who, this is what's wrong with intelligent culture, right? A little bit of intelligence is a dangerous thing. That's a truism, because these people are the, whatever, Dunning-Kruger effect thing all over the place. They have a little bit of intelligence and therefore think themselves qualified. And they don't, they're not willing to have themselves tested. They're not willing to stand up and defend the crap they say. They just talk shit from behind anonymous little coward rocks. And again, I've been talking on the internet for 10 years, doing this right in your face, fucker. Okay. I've never declined an opportunity to debate anyone ever. I mean, I don't do text arguments, I'll concede. Yes, I'm not going to argue physics in text comments. Doesn't seem me to be very fruitful. Personally tutoring people on physics in text could probably take a billion zillion years. Anyway, you're just a hooligan. Very good. Excellent. Yes, that's all he is. And a cunt, and a bastard, and a coward. That is only your poor own perception and opinion, which is okay with me. Well, of course it'd be okay with you, because you're a retard. You don't know what the difference between right and wrong is, accurate and inaccurate. So you think it's okay for somebody to pretend what they're saying is meaningful and substantial when it's absolute, pig slop. All right, the Alexander Zaptia guy. Let's see. I took a look at his video regarding solid state generally, supposedly using magnetic precession. In the video, he says he won't talk about the precession very much, where the money is. Yeah, well, anyway, this whole idea, he said a couple of times that any day now there's going to be a huge announcement about this huge this and the huge that, or the infinite energy source found. Yeah, right, sure. And that's the let's see, that's only your poor own perception, right back at you. So again, this guy doesn't answer critiques. He just sits there and ignores them, walks past them with some rubbish, like that's an opinion. No, it's an opinion where somebody offered evidence of why it's a correct opinion. And so therefore it means something. You have to come back with more than nothing. So I'm not going to, there's about 15 of these comments by this asswipe, so no point. In the end, let's see, this Zaptia guy, have you donated him any money? And he says he has enough of that, smiley face. Yeah, well, quite obviously he has very, very big credit cards, or he's got a big fat inheritance, or he's got something. It just seems kind of silly. Give me some donations, because I only have 2 houses and 300 lenses and, and 200 cameras and, I mean, it's $200,000. If the cameras were just $1,000 a piece, it'd be $200, $200,000 for cameras. For fuck's sake. None of you know what you're talking about, but I trust Ken Wheeler more than this human. Well, if you're doing this based on trust, then you ought to just go fuck yourself until you're dead, because nobody's worthy of trust. You don't trust somebody regarding, would you trust somebody regarding religion? They'll just show up and say, I know Jesus, I talked to Jesus, Jesus told me everything, and I really get it, and I'll just, yes, so just trust me, I know the truth. Or do you really want an explanation, asswipe? Physics is about explaining things. It's not about trust. If you're trusting a physicist, you're doing physics wrong, retard. We'll just kick him off of there. Hello, may I ask this human credentials are? Again, my credentials are my arguments, jackass. I don't need credentials. I make detailed arguments explaining exactly why I see something the way I see it. I point out what evidence there is. I point out that there's no evidence of a certain experiment being duplicated, and I point it out. And when I make an argument about single slit diffraction, I show the fucking videos of the fucking diffraction. I don't need to have credentials, cunt. Anyway, you're not even close to even incite the need for Wall to answer you. As a matter of fact, personally, I find your endeavor rather daft, to say the least. Malicious otherwise if intentionally done. I don't even know what that means. Let me elaborate a little. What, in poor, pitiful English? Oh, look at all this drivelous asshole types. You see galaxies far away doing the same thing behaving as our galaxy. I don't know what you're talking about. You can't see our galaxy, idiot. When Wall raises an objection, you want proof why we can't assume it's the same thing. Forces, interactions, etc., as with our galaxy. So again, does that make any sense to anyone on Earth? Could that possibly make any sense? Where have I said our galaxy is different than other galaxies? What I've said that solar systems aren't galaxies. They're functionally different mechanisms. They function different. The mass is distributed fundamentally different. So the same rules of gravity don't apply. The same fundamental rules do, but the abstract, assumptive, axiomatic rules don't apply. While the logic here is absolutely sound, your video, on the other hand, is full of purely imaginative stuff. Well, again, if it's all imaginative, then how could I possibly draw pictures that are relevant to physical reality, shithead? Every single particle you mentioned is purely theoretical and absolutely impossible to prove in today's scientific and technical terms. Well, it depends on what your definition of proof is, right? If the definition of proof is beyond a reasonable contention, then it's completely satisfactory evidence. It is you people who have no reasonable theory of some other possibility existing. You claim there's no electron. Well, I mean, there's a ton of evidence that there's a clump, okay, of energy that does travel at speeds that may approach close to the speed of light, that does have negative charge, that does have all of these components. Now, what's your evidence of something else? Oh, it's so cool. Oh, I can't believe how cool that is. Oh, Halloween guy. They ought to just kill everybody's kids at birth. Because obviously people just can't parent correctly. Let's see, you can experiment with electricity for a whole billion years, but that in no way, scientifically speaking, yeah, you're a real scientist, can prove the existence of an electron. Well, again, it does by implication. There's certain facts about function that can't be denied. And when you put those facts together, you're stuck with the existence of something that we can identify, a condition of the universe where it isn't a clump of very consistent form that can migrate around and be interchanged by different atoms. It's just an undeniable fact. Now, you want to pretend it's deniable? Well, go ahead, but you haven't done it with anything called an argument, you jackass. Your argument is Tesla says so. Your argument isn't something like this experiment makes us doubt the existence or the reliability of electrons. Show me the experiment that makes electrons look like they don't really exist. Oh, you're not going to do any of that. So the rest of what you typed was kind of a waste of your time because, frankly, you're an impolite, motherfucking rude cunt. And if you can't do better than this, I have no obligation to read your fucking graffiti. You have no evidence, and you're making bold accusations. And until you grow a ball and show up and make your accusations to my fucking face, you little weasel, you can go fuck yourself till dead. Anyway. All right, so then some asshole asked for, somebody posted the archive link to Ken's magnetism video, which is a link where you have to like join Facebook or something to get it. So I don't know what that racket is. But anyway, there is an actual download link that you don't have to play the game. So I did get his book. And when, I don't know, I'm debilitated by anal warts, maybe I'll read through it again. I know I downloaded once before and, got through like 2 pages and just found it obnoxious. But we'll see how it goes. So this last little idiot. Hi, Mr. Wheeler has dedicated a video to you, ? If so, please give me the link. Kind regards. Well, Miguel. No, he hasn't dedicated anything called a video. He laughed for whatever, 84 seconds and made no argument except I look funny. So this is the big fat tattooed guy pointing out how somebody else looks funny. Yeah. I mean, right there, Ken loses all kinds of credibility points, right? I mean, he can't even figure out, that monstrously fat tattooed guys with big giant holes in their ears, who are rather ugly, shouldn't be throwing stones. I mean, fuck. And he talks about intelligence. That's not really showing much. All right, anyway. So let's see what the chat has to say for now, and then we'll move on to doing some Ken video, I suppose. And see if anybody shows up, and if not, then you'll be cut a break, because I don't think I want to explain anything tonight. Just so distracted. Like I said, I had to do all this website rebuilding that I just got everything working. That was it took, a little bit here and there. I just got things working again and blah, blah, blah. And then, GoDaddy crashes me again. The same fucking bullshit. And you're just like, I mean, what they obviously do is at a certain point, they say, this customer doesn't buy any of our extra bullshit. So we're not making enough money off them. So let's put them on the server with all the malware and all the criminals, so that companies like Verizon block the port that the server's on. Yeah, so he won't even be able to view his own website. I mean, just really irritating. Hi, Gary. Is somebody coming to debate you today? No, I doubt it. If they weren't such cowards, I'm not taking sides, but I'm not sure of what is the actual gist of the technology. I don't know what that has to do with it. But what do you think of quantum computers? Well, obviously, I don't think a qubit, a bit that looks into the future and finds the answer, so you don't actually have to do the calculation. I mean, that's a qubit is, a quantum computer is basically saying they think they can worm their hole. Yeah, they think they can find a worm in their hole and jump to the answer. So like I could make a formula of like 2 + 7 + 9 + 14 + 28. And they think that they can use their magic qubit to jump to the answer. Like I don't have to do the 2 + 7 + this + I don't have to do any of that stuff. I'll just qubit my way to the answer. That's the theory. Now, on its face, I think you can surmise in your brain that if the universe worked that way, there wouldn't be praying mantises eating things alive. And Sarek would have hands more proportional to his feet. That's the way things would be, right? I mean, you just can't make any sense out of it. It just sounds like complete crap. Anyway. In regards to what you think, anyway, so I'm not a big fan of this quantum computer crap that you can have. You can find shortcuts. You're not going to, algorithms are really smart. They can be very efficient. You can do lots of profiling in the sense that you can get approximation answers that are really good by profiling questions and answers and all that kind of stuff. But there really is. To some things, to get the right answer, you got to do the equation. It's just the way it is. I say this because a lot of large computing companies are into this research. Well, I would say they're not really into it. I'd say they're probably spending 14 cents on it, and it's only the real loop-de-doo places. They don't have to account for the money they piss away, like CERN and stuff. They're the ones government supported that are wasting any time on this crap. And it seems like they do like to talk about qubit successes. Well, again, there haven't really been any successes. It's just all mush. I mean, to get their success, their qubit to work, it only cost about $79 million in fucking gasoline. They probably had to do 7 zillion computer operations to get it to jump to 2 + 2 = 4. They can't even jump over 2 + 2 = 4. I do know qubits are their version of bits and bytes. Well, again, they're not really. They're stupidity. That's so interesting. You're such an interesting character. Thank you so much. Die of cancer soon. I hope your mother dies of cancer and your father, because they were cunts to give birth to an asshole. So they really do deserve horrible cancer. So I'm wishing cancer on your mother and your father, and I hope they both are already dead, frankly. But if I can in some way use my wishing powers to impose on them great harm and destruction, I think I might as well do that, because they were complete assholes to give birth to a little Weasley cunts. So what do you want, troll guy? Oh, he ran away. I guess he didn't want to have his parents cursed. Yeah. Come here to get your parents cursed. I gotta sell that. I have a website. I'll curse your parents. Yeah. Fun. Anyway, Verizon are vampires. Yeah, well, Verizon's cunts, but I mean, GoDaddy is double cunt because they're liars. I mean, they're just pathetic fucking liars. I mean, you know what they did. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know what they did, and they keep trying to blame everybody in the universe. And what happens in the end? When I finally get off the phone after 4 hours, and I say, you motherfuckers, I paid you for a website, and it doesn't fucking work. And, a half hour later, the website's working. Well, I guess they figured it out then, didn't they? Let's see. Hey, dude, hope your Saturday night is going okay. Well, I'm not big on this dude talk, frankly. So you better be very careful about that. I ain't your dude, fucker. I ain't your boy. I ain't any of that shit. Sir, Mr. Inmendum Dear. That's how I will be addressed, thank you. I want a computer that will warm my hole. Well, okay, I guess you're really not of any use at all, so I'll just block you, Brian. See ya. I'm not much of I don't do comedy much. I really don't like jokes. I sometimes tell jokes by accident. But that's the only kind of humor I like, is accidental humor. Yeah, that's it. Like if you trip and fall into cat poo, yeah, I'll laugh at that. That's funny. It's accidental humor. But if you're trying to make a joke, I like a computer to warm my butthole. Yeah, it's got to be a lot better joke than that. All right, my understanding of the quantum computer using qubits can solve certain exponential problems that would take ages for binary computers. Big O notation exponential problems, whatever that means. I'm just saying there's nothing intrinsically saving. You can't create a non-bit in the first place, okay? The whole idea of the undecided bit is retarded. But the whole point is the only way this qubit can do any of this stuff is it has to jump to the answer. You're just not getting it. Their whole theory depends on the qubit being able to play. It's like the theory is based on the idea that they think there's a shortcut through atoms, where you can bore through the nucleus and go quicker than the electrons. Well, yeah, you can, but you're not going faster than the speed of light. There's no magic. And they think they think they can jump to the future. They think basically a qubit can go to the future and find out what the answer was. That's what they think. There's no logic to it otherwise. There's no way to make an undecided bit smarter than decided bits. It's like it's like me saying I'm going to pour milk on my computer and it'll work better. How the fuck is that going to make it work better? It's not logical. An undecided bit is not going to make your computer smarter. It's going to make it stupider. So unless their theory that they can jump to the future is correct, the qubit will serve them no purpose. It can only make the computer dumber. It can't make it smarter. So the whole thing stands no chance. It's illogical rubbish. I mean, it really is. I just don't know. How does somebody think they can beat the crude explicitness of binary functions? I mean, you can't escape that there's no shortcut, 2 plus 2. There's just no way to shorten that problem. You can't make it a less of a problem. You just can't. You're going to have to do the problem. You just can't evade plus signs and stuff. I mean, like I said, algorithms, you can fuck around profiling, but that's all. And a qubit's not going to make you a better profiler of the truth. Ah, man. Well, let's see your nuts, Dr. Nicholas Jones. So Dr. Nicholas Jones, okay, an obvious pussy, dickless troll. Is that an old, ugly, worn-out man or woman? Well, let's see what you look like. Again, another pussy who has nothing, puts nothing online, does nothing, talking about somebody else's appearance. May you, your children, your mother, your father, all die horribly and disgustingly. Because if anybody deserves it on earth, it's you lying cunts. You slandering, petty, weaselly little pieces of shit. Obviously, your children will be assholes, mega assholes, if this is what you're doing with your time. Even if you had kids, obviously, and you were wasting your time doing this on the internet, your kids might as well have AIDS, and we might as well humanely put them out of their misery. Because having a father as dumb as you, doctor, yeah, you can't get worse. You can't have a worse disease than that fucker. So anyway, I mean, really, just so useless. Let's see. I took half a course on quantum computing. Well, that's kind of cool. In Corsica. You know, they're all drunk there, right? It would work by using operation on the state of an atom by distributing it in ways to change its configuration by playing with the atom. Well, again, the argument is it doesn't matter. Like you could say, I'll make a nano computer and I'll give it 7 million processors. So now that it can, like one processor can do the 2 plus 2 part, another processor does the 3 plus 7, another processor does the 24 plus, and I can make a computer that works faster, you know, and can do a problem, but I can't jump away out of the problem. I'm just saying the whole qubit thing there's no reasoning in this mythology that somehow you get more accurate by using something like fuzzy logic, if you get what I'm saying. That's how you get a generalization. It's not how you get more explicit. So I'm just saying this can't be of any value in any major way. Like I say, making smaller computers is a great idea, but you know, nanotechnology is not quantum computing. So I mean, if you can find a way to store information inside of atoms, well, great. If you can make a 7 million gigabyte memory chip, great. But that has nothing to do with quantum computing. Doesn't really matter whether I'm ugly, but the point is anybody who's going to be wasting people's time with conversations about whether I look like, okay, I've fucked a train before, who cares? I mean, it just can't be important to anybody with a brain. It just can't be. All right, anyway, so I think we're caught up on the jibber jabber. So let's do some Kenneth information education fun. My impression was it just adds 2 extra kinds of bits to be used along with binary ones by manipulating ions, and that somehow makes computing better. Well, I'm just saying this somehow makes computing better is like the underwear gnomes, okay? Step A, call it a qubit. Step B, step C, computing is better. You know, I mean, there's no step B in here. There's no logic that makes any of this mush make something compute better. Yeah, it does not replace normal computers. It would only solve not not all problems better. Well, I just don't know how it could make a distinction between a problem and a problem, right? A problem that you have, like, I mean, in a sense, all problems are math problems. I mean, even social problems, in a sense, are math problems, right? I mean, there's a certain geometry that the problem falls into, and that you have axioms and values, and you have to apply the problem through that value filter and blah, blah, blah. And all of that takes thought and time, and you have to analyze it as it goes through the different filters. It just can't save you any of that. Again, I'm just saying the whole premise is the fucking qubit somehow can jump to the answer. That's really all this crap is about. Like somehow it's magically going to jump to the solution. And you can't jump to solutions. You have to work them out. It's like on a chessboard saying I'm going to jump to checkmate. So somehow I'm going to make all the moves are going to happen, and I'm just going to jump to the part where I checkmate. So anyway, I don't want to keep arguing qubit crap, but I'm just saying I have seen no documentation that makes it at all rational to me. I've seen no explanation of qubitting that doesn't say something very close to, and then we rub the lotion on Tinkerbell's hiney, and we end up at the singularity. I mean, it all sounds like complete rubbish. All right, anyway, so let's do some Ken video on education. So this ought to be fun. Because he just says things, you're just like, oh, come on. I mean, this is all just lingo. You know what I mean? These are all like cliches. There ought to be a web page of Ken's favorite cliches.
Only videos that piss people off.
Nature's not a crack whore on spaghetti. Nature's not a strung out heroin addicted prostitute on lollipops.
Because they're accurate, and most people are in love with lies and nonsense.
Right. Okay. So I would agree that most people are liars and believers in the nonsense, and I think you're selling a big pile of that. I think you're very deceptive and very dishonest in your rhetoric. I don't think you really prove a damn fucking thing you say, and your accusations are excessive, hyperbolic, in excess. So yes, lots of hyperbole in your rhetoric, and apparently no ball in your nutsack.
What do you think an education has anything to do with intelligence or wisdom?
So do you think an education has anything to do with intelligence and wisdom? It doesn't guarantee either one of those things, but damn, it sure helps. So yeah, I think it has a lot to do with it. I think the lack of an education can leave somebody profoundly disabled in the intelligence and wisdom department. So yeah, I think there's absolutely a huge correlation between the acquisition of knowledge and wisdom. Yeah, you have to have some knowledge to be wise. You're not going to just fall on the truth. The truth isn't, how to say it? It requires a context. You have to understand the context. And you can't understand the context if you haven't researched the context. So yeah, education gives you context. What you do with it or how you pervert it, well, that's another subject. So yes, obviously being intelligent hasn't done some people any good at all. I'd say it hasn't done you much good, because it just turned you into a pompous, arrogant, unaccountable troll.
I don't know. Where did Shakespeare get his degree from? Where did Plato or Pythagoras or
Well, I think he obviously earned it in the streets of hard knocks, but obviously he had to become. He was very literate, so quite obviously he must have done some reading before you can do some writing. I think we we could obviously say that. And to do some writing, you have to understand what writing is, and so you have to do a lot of reading, I would imagine, or do a lot of storytelling. So I'd say that's the college he went to. He acquired intelligence through acquisition of knowledge.
Plotinus or Damasius or Numenius?
You don't think they were all not proteges of somebody else? They didn't just it just didn't fall into their lap. These people were all proteges of some other intellectual guy who taught them the ropes. That's the most artists had to work with some other artist to become great artists.
Get their degree from. I'm pretty sure that paper is for dogs. Now, I spent.
I'm pretty sure paper is for dogs. Now, I mean, frankly, I find that whole thing rather disgusting. I wouldn't, I wouldn't, dogs should go to the bathroom outside. But anyway, moving on.
6 years in college.
Yeah, doing what? Studying what? Now, wouldn't that make a big part of this whole equation? If somebody said, do you think being educated in how to stick your thumb up your ass and be a pretentious twat um, makes you knowledgeable or wise? Well, no, that might not work. So I guess it depends on the subject. It seems quite obvious that you did not go to college to learn physics because you don't seem to know any of that. Yeah, yeah, it seems that way.
And no 7 languages. I've written 8 books.
Right. Again, so how does this qualify you as for to do anything? Knowing languages. Let's ask that to people. Does knowing languages, different kinds of languages, and be able to speak different languages make you wise? Is that a source of wisdom? Would anybody rational say so? I don't think so. I mean, babble from another, especially when it's, some of the languages are dead, which means the owners of the language couldn't even preserve their culture. They weren't even wise enough to preserve their culture.
Tons of articles. Translate ancient Greek, translate ancient Romanized Sanskrit, translate ancient Prakrit.
Right, great. All failed civilizations, and not saying there isn't some value in this process, but I'm just saying, what good do these translations of poo smells like duty? I mean, there's not a whole lot of brilliance in all this crap. The sun is trying to burn my nuts off. I mean, that's not exactly intelligent or wise.
I love to translate ancient Neoplatonic texts.
Right, and so he thinks I'm supposed to rationally conclude that translating blah, 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 blah is somehow a source of wisdom. No. No. No.
I wrote an article of all the occurrences of the Eristos and uncovered the missing secret of the real meaning of Ananke.
Ananke.
Dolma.
Poop.
That's loosely translated as necessity. I mean, that's just totally. There's some ancient Greek terms that are totally untranslatable.
Well, isn't that great too? Terms that are totally untranslatable. So there's not even enough context in the sentence for you to figure out whether it, you can't even knock it down to it's a round thing or a square thing. You can't figure out that what it can't be. I think you could probably do the it can't be thing. Anyway.
Do you really think that education has any connection to intelligence or wisdom?
Okay, yes, I'll reiterate my answer. Yes, I do think education is kind of fundamental. And I think you can look at the world around us and you can find that the people who haven't had an education are really fucktarded. And the ones who have had an education aren't quite as fucktarded. But I mean, the ones that haven't are really obviously pieces of shit. So yeah, not having it isn't a good thing. Having it will not save anybody from anything, but not having it will guarantee you're an asshole. You're an asshole. You're an asshole for sure. All right, so Kyle, what are you up to? Yes.
Oh, nothing. Just dropping in real quick.
Real quick, for what purpose?
I don't know. I don't know what the subject is right now.
All right. Well, guess what? This room doesn't do the I don't know what the subject is. I don't pay any attention. I'm just doing the social thing. Yeah, I'm not doing that. So,
Yeah, well, when you just drop in, I'll have no idea.
oh, well, I'm just saying I'm not inviting people to just drop in. So I'm just saying you can just drop out, please.
Right?
Thank you very much. I mean, why would I just drop in a room called DraftScience with one guy and I can't even listen for 30 seconds and realize what he's talking about? I mean, that I'm talking about something anyway, not nothing.
I had some people recently, because I made a video yesterday bitching about my taxes.
Well, I missed
paying
that.
for other people's stupidity. Public schools. Unfortunately, I went to public schools.
Where the hell was that video? But I sure as fuck missed that. Damn.
You know, I excelled despite them. Not because of them, but in spite of them. I would have, God knows, been how much further if I hadn't pissed my time away. You know, taking homework home, algebra, and all the insane drivel and bullshit.
Oh, right. Algebra was a big problem. A huge waste of time. Geometry and algebra. It's pretty funny. Anyway, I mean, just two basic, really good kind of square, straight line subjects, and he's complaining about them.
That school teaches you, and college. They don't teach you the ancient Platonic method, the dialectic of critical thinking. I mean, every child on Earth.
The dialectric. Did he just say the dialectric of critical thinking? Did he just say that? Or did he say dialectic? But even that doesn't make any sense. So it's just word poo. Just, that's all this is. He's just mixing up. He's just dumping shit into a bowl and stirring up the words until they come out to say something.
Fit from being ordered to read and reread the works of Plotinus, of Plato, Simplicius, Proclus, Numenius. I mean, these things will turn you into...
simplicitous. Why don't you post some of the brilliance? I mean, what's it take? Say, go find one paragraph of Simplicis and post it here. The best Simplicis paragraph. You could just post it in the description and impress the fuck out of us with the brilliant wisdom. Why don't you do that? Oh, that's right, because most of that artifactal crap is just artifactal crap, and it's not saying anything. The earth, wind, and fire are the four functions of the universe, and they seem to all be oriented to somehow make my feet smell. That's not wisdom. That's retarded.
They'll turn you into an individual that will make the Vulcans from Star Trek look like, clowns and knuckle drag.
Yes, well, Sarek already looks a little knuckle draggy. But, frankly, the characters from Star Trek were preposterously pompous, hypocritical losers. I mean, the whole... Oh, Vulcan's going to get blown up. Oh, let's all have a cry. I mean, really. Hypocrite. Vulcans were hypocrites.
Idiots by comparison. Education has no connection to intelligence. I mean, you can receive some of the dumbest people I've ever met were the most highly educated. It's like, well, all they did was learn how to pass tests.
Okay, so that's his theory. So he's actually met very highly educated people who are the dumbest people he ever met. So yeah, is that really how your life works? Like the really smart people, the highly educated, are the dumbest people you've ever met? I mean, I'd say Ken's dumb, but frankly, he's not. He'd nowhere come even closest to the dumbest person I've ever met. Come on, just silly.
Yes, memorize this shit. Rah, rah, 2 times 4 equals... All these people think that degrees mean something. Now, obviously, And I've said this before,
Well, I mean, you're using examples of grammar school knowledge to critique degrees, high degrees in specialized subjects. So, and again, specialized subjects kind of depends on the subject you have a degree in, whether I'm going to say, hey, that's really impressive. So clearly, medical doctors are highly educated, and a lot of them, the vast majority of them, I'd even say, are quite functional in applying that intelligence and your critique that they're some of the dumbest people you've ever met. If I gave you time to go to a medical convention and have interactions with these doctors, that you'd say after you left the room, boy, that was the group of the dumbest people I've ever met. I don't think so.
heard the ire of some people. The question is would you rather be operated on
Ah, good.
if you only had two choices, okay? Between, say, somebody that just got out of med school with a degree, or like some doctor in the third world nation that has been like working in the emergency room without a degree for like 20 years.
Well, frankly, if the guy's going to be doing open heart surgery and he just got out of medical school, which is 6 years, doing heart surgery, then yeah, I'm probably going to go with that guy. If it's the guy working in the emergency room, all he knows how to do is take a hammer and smash a cork into the fucking holes, right? What the hell's the guy in the emergency room doing? He's a hole filler. He might as well work for a road crew, throwing asphalt on shit. He knows how to wrap a bandage quick. He knows how to do some shit, but he don't know how to do any shit that matters. So get real, Ken. Again, bad analogy. Well, anyway, I won't keep playing this because he's obviously not on a subject of any kind. I could go, well, let's jump ahead and see if he gets to anything that really matters here, because I just don't think he's going anywhere specific. So it's just no point. I mean, I'm not going to waste your time. We're just doing a philosophy video now.
A bear trap for them. You know, it's okay to admit that you don't know. It's like, well, we don't have the answers. That's fine. You first have to admit what you don't know.
I think this is a Feynman insult.
There's the answer. The only two things that they've ever done, and these are the people that people laud as experts, PhDs in field theory and physics. I've debated these PhD assholes myself. I email them.
Okay. Did we have any evidence of these debates? I mean, is there anywhere I can find one of them? So they were all somehow private debates that aren't in any public forum somewhere or something where I could see the Ken Wheeler totally dismantle the field theorist. So you're making claims. Is there someplace I can find this shit where you've won these debates?
I'll ask them a really innocent question. What I'm doing is preparing a bear trap for them.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's okay to admit that you don't know. It's like, well, we don't have the answers. That's fine. You first have to admit what you don't know.
No, you have to. It's a puzzle. And sometimes in a puzzle, you'll imagine what's over there. You'll say, oh, I can sort of see that that's a wall over there. And if once you know those are wall pieces, then you say, okay, well, if I see anything with, grout in it or something, cement, I'll throw that piece and that goes over there because I'm working over here where the wall ain't. So sometimes you have to imagine the existence of something else to be able to get done what you need to get done, because it gives you tools, it gives you power. So once you make surmises and guesstimations at something, those guesstimations and surmises will make it possible for you to get onto the part that matters. So, you're making a car or something, okay, wheels, big deal, I don't have to worry too much about that. Drivetrain, okay, I got that. And maybe you can take the time to spend on the engine, the part that matters.
To start out down a path of discovery. If you think you know something that you really don't know, then you're never looking for it. If you think you know the answer to
well, look who's talking. Man, this potentious motherfucker who says, I've got the answer. I found it. I cured magnetism. And he's got nothing. And he's clearly not looking for any more detail. He's just got this, it's a coaxial cable. Don't you understand? I mean, there's coaxial cables strung all over the universe. Don't you see it all over the place? Haven't you tripped on any of it? I mean, nothing explanations. And he seems completely satisfied that all he has to do is say hyperboloid, uh, figgly faggly foo, what's his, 1 over phi squared, blah, there. I'm done now, right? 1 over phi squared, there. Aren't we done? You don't look like you're looking for any truth, fucker.
Something, you never go looking for the answer to something. It's like someone that thinks that they know what light is. Well, light is just a transverse electrical magnetic, and it's got a photon particle right there in the. No.
Light is just a transverse photo transmagnetic. No, they don't. They're not arguing that. They're not doing this transverse magnetic blah blah blah. In a serious way. They're doing field equations now. So, but anyway,
that's not what light is. What's a field? Well, a field is one of the four Maxwellian field equations with a vector with a given effect over a period of time. No.
That's not what a field is anyway. A field is a density of locations with a vector. So you're not even describing it accurately. Maxwell didn't say a field is a vector. He's saying a field is a bunch of points with vectors, locations with a vector, with a charge, so to speak. So you're not even, you're not using your uneducation very well.
That describes effect with a vector over a period of time. That does not tell you what a field is in principle. Oh, the easiest way to destroy these people is to ask them what a field is, because then they'll tell you what.
No. This is just such a lie. Because where's the evidence that that's what they'll tell you? Show me the evidence that that's what they'll tell you. That they won't tell you that a field is a density of locations. That it's a it's the wrong word, density. I want to say some other word. A space of locations with potentialities, depending on what the field is.
They think, or they were taught, actually, not what they think. They never tell you what they think because they don't know how to think. See, education does not teach people how to think. Education does not give them...
Well, whatever that even means. So you know how to think. Okay, you have the magic, this is how you think book. And I'm supposed to be impressed with the fact that your book apparently says you don't really have to say anything. Just use words and they'll fall for it. So just use a bunch of verbal crap spewed out of your, gob, and the ignorant masses who can't figure it out will be impressed because you used a big giant word with a lot of syllables.
The ability to have critical thinking in their system, in their brain. It doesn't. What they do is they regurgitate.
All right. So it takes a critical thinker to come up with Einstein was an imbecile. Yeah, I don't think so.
Bullshit that they were taught to believe. It's no different than a religion. You just regurgitate that crap. Repeat.
Again, where have any of your followers done anything but regurgitate your crap? Where have they come with the argument? Where have they added any explanations or depth to any of these words or these subjects? Absolutely nowhere. And probably they are a big pile of undereducated, fat asses who've had way too much spare time in their lives. That's what might be my theory. You don't buy $5,000 cameras unless you have way too much time on your hands and way too much money.
It and repeat it, and okay. Here's your PhD, and I'm going to tattoo this on your forearm. I'm going to give you a piece of paper that says you've got a PhD. You're a confirmed parrot bullshitter. You're nothing but a damn parrot.
And this is coming from the guy, again, who just keeps quoting tests, quote. Steinman said, this guy said, blah, 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 blah. So he's constantly quoting his authorities. And frankly, the quotes aren't about anything real. I mean, they're just this Morpheus non-reality of a quote, nothing physically described, just quotes about non-real things.
A parrot doesn't think critically. I mean, it does in its own intuitive way, like navigating. I'm talking about these people that colleges and high schools spit out. Education is not intelligence, and it is absolutely, undeniably, irrefutably not.
Right. So, I mean, really, you people are so gullible and will feed on this shit. Do you really think that if at schools they start being as vacuous and empty in their descriptions of physics? Well, there's no atoms. Atoms is a silly idea, and the electrons are just made up, and it's really just a bunch of this. So, like, the universe is made out of and it's and through these like coaxial cabley things that are all over the place, and that would be a brilliant grammar school education. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think fucking so.
Wisdom, existential knowledge, or episteme. That's one thing, and even that's above an education.
Yeah, well, it's above an education. Again, and what would that include? Tinker, Hyperberloid Bell.
Education today is denotatively
Okay.
memorization.
By definition, memorization and da 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 da. Well, frankly, it wasn't. Even when I went to school, most of it's useless. I would advocate for a system that paid kids to pass tests. So you just get paid to pass tests. No matter how old you are, you get paid if you pass a test. Especially the really important tests. Yeah, you get paid well to pass the fully qualified test. And and that would encourage everybody to open more books and learn more shit, and you wouldn't need all this school system. Yeah, the system is bad. Okay, we agree the system of education is bad, but frankly, some of it is necessary. There's certain functional parts that the system has to do, and some of that part, it does require some memorization. Learning how to spell and do different things do require a certain authority. And frankly, I lacked that in my education, and I'm not as functional for that reason. Certain things, like, you have to learn how to do them. Typing, for example, never learned how to type.
Of material and data, the regurgitation for which and by which to pass tests. Critical thinking is not taught in school or college anymore. Now,
anymore. So again, that's another argument. Like, somehow 200 years ago, when they were teaching out of the Bible, it was a better education. I don't think so.
Ability to engage the dialectic is not taught in school or college anymore. People with the ability of critical
the dialectic. I don't know. What is that supposed to mean to an average human walking the street? If you saw a dialectic written on the sidewalk, what do you say to that? Oh, I'm supposed to piss here.
de-evolved brains, that those three things that are different. It's like, I'm highly educated, I got a PhD. So what? You're an idiot. Existential knowledge?
Well, whatever. I'd say, this critique of yours is idiotic. It's beneath your intelligence to waste time making these arguments that it doesn't matter. It does, of course, matter. People's knowledge base should even give them some measure of credibility, because they've seen things. Now, if they're still liars or they're talking shit, like a lot of physicists do, then they're still shit talkers, or they're fucking liars. You can call them that. But to assume that everybody with a degree is an asshole because some people with a degree are an asshole, that's really just stupid. I mean, if I have to live next door to people, I'd rather live next door to people that have been educated rather than people who haven't been educated. And I think most people would say, yeah, that's probably right.
You make basically with like poster board and duct tape. That sort of creative thinking dialectic is not taught. So I am hardcore.
Whatever. Creative thinking can be taught. I think it can be inspired or incited, perhaps. I don't think you can teach it. You have to give somebody a passion Okay, passion will lead you to knowledge. If you have a passion to know, then you will take things apart. You'll spend time to become familiar with them. You'll read the crappy, shitty book that's mostly garbage because you know that 10 pages of it are really important. Um, you'll think and imagine, and you'll even learn by watching a movie because you'll think about how they made the movie. They'll think about the plot. You'll think about the formula, how they're manipulating you emotionally. You'll think about all the little elements and all of that stuff. And yes, people need to do more thinking uh, in a context. And that's what I would call that. I would call it understanding that there's context. And you always have to be aware of context. And you can't get lost inside the little Fanny moments. You have to, move out from her ass once in a while and see if there's more to this world.
Not against education. All I'm saying is that education has no connection to intelligence or wisdom. I spent many.
All right. Well, again, the on its face, in my opinion, it's a silly argument, but whatever. I mean, even a bad education is better than no education.
Years in college, and just because I despise modern education does not mean that I don't believe. You really think the guy that's written 8 books and knows a pile of languages and translate ancient Greek for fun, and has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, literally, in that back room, well, not one room, but several rooms back there.
Yeah, having books is not the same thing as understanding books. And then number two, it really depends on what the books are, right? So if they're all religious books, then you really don't own any books that are of any value. They might as well all have dog shit on them. They might as well just be full of dog shit, in my opinion.
You think that person doesn't love learning? No. What I'm telling you is that bullshit education and a PhD or having a doctorate or a paper saying that doesn't mean shit.
Well, it's just, again, it's stupid to say it doesn't mean shit. It means something. And you have to measure it based on the character of the individual who possesses the paper. But to say that they can have a knowledge base so detailed enough where they have actually seen the elbow joint, the bones themselves. They've actually been tested on understanding the strength of the bones. They've been tested on all this mechanism. To say that that knowledge is of no meaning would be just retardedly stupid. So you're just categorizing yourself as just being the very thing you're complaining about, an overeducated imbecile. I mean, overly verbose. You have vocabulary, but you have no knowledge or an understanding of the meaning of words. And you just don't walk around calling things casually an imbecile. It's not a casual kind of word, Ken. It's an in your face, important word. And you shouldn't use it sloppily. You just shouldn't use it sloppily. It should mean something. And it needs to mean something in this world. Being wrong should mean something. And again, you're not putting anything on the line. All right? I am. I'm willing. All right? I'm willing to be gutted in the public square if I committed dishonesty. I'm willing to put my nuts in jeopardy because I know who I am and I know the integrity of what I've learned, and I know it's not just words and mush because I've lived it and I've thought about it deeply. Anyway, he's just such a rude fuck. Anyway, all right. So let's see where we are here in terms of chat crap. Let's see. Back a little further. The CIA laboratory. That's really interesting. Let's see. No one cares about you. That's really irrelevant. These are all Ken Einstein types, right? What a bunch of cowards. Let's see. Sorry, I had to go all the way back. Let's see. I do know qubits are their version of bits and bytes. Well, again, I just don't see how that makes any sense. I mean, bits and bytes are explicit. Qubits aren't. Um, I took it. Okay, that's half a course. That's your problem. Let's see. Yeah, it does not replace normal computers. It would only solve certain, not all problems better. Well, again, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how the segregation of problems seems a little bit silly. Uh, it's cool that your mom let you shoot this show in her basement. Well, it's cool that you think my mom is, would be relevant. She is 95, by the way. But anyway, all right. So we'll see you later, Nick. I don't even need to read the rest of your comments, Nick. No, I don't even need to waste my time. So I'm glad I could waste yours. Uh, let's see. Nick, it's past your bedtime. Well, we don't need that comment anymore, but I'm not going to bother deleting it. Oh, yuck. Someone gave me this link. I'm going to barf. Look at this junkie. So you're a profiler, huh, Felix Siam? Yeah, you just profile people? Oh, that's just awful. You're such an unethical cunt. Anyway, goodbye, Felix. This dude is retarded in a special form. Like, that's a real brainiacy argument there. So, good night. Oh, let's see. Oh, the Buffalo Bill thing. I have to really find the video. I did the Buffalo Bill sequence for my 1000th video on YouTube like 7 years ago. And so you're not going to own me with that comment at all. What do you look like? A typewriter? Oh, that's right. You're too much of a coward to show us. Coward, 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 ballless, dickless coward, little tiny penis and little tiny testicles. La 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 la. Go fuck yourself in the ass until dead with your tiny penis. You will die because, yes, you'll never get any relief. You'll never finish because your penis will never be able to touch your asshole because your fat ass will be in the way. The dielectric grease of the universe. Yeah, whatever that is. For all this fetishizing of your accent, of the accents, I wonder not really what Andy's take would be on those Venus figures and cannibalized Neanderthal bones. I don't even know what that means, but I'm not too sure about the whole cannibalism thing anyway. So there was some guy here to kill yourself. Wow, proud of yourself. Let's see, these two guys fighting with each other or something. How much do you pay your mom to live there? I don't know who he's talking to, but I think we can just get rid of people with pink icons. Probably see that. Let's see, smoking a battery. Yeah, I don't know what that means, but it's, again, just too irrelevant. So, good night, Kyle. Let's see. Get in there and debate with him, trolls. Yes, ballless, dickless trolls. Rick Grimes. I usually don't like this guy much. Can I be a moderator? I don't know. Can you? Can you sit up straight? I don't know. Get on Ken's live stream now and debate him. You can't get on his live stream, okay? I've already sent him PMs requesting a debate. He won't have any of it. He claims he doesn't know how to let anybody in the room, okay? It's like he said Einstein and a genius, but he can't figure out how Google works, and he can't figure out how to invite anybody to argue with him in the room live. That's his argument. He doesn't know how to do it. Do you believe that? What do you think about the 35 millimeter 140? Well, that's a kind of a funny joke, so I'll let that one go. I think 35 millimeters dead. Dead. And you should bury it completely and go with 36. 35.2. Your skin looks dry. You need to put the lotion on its skin. Okay, Rick. Well, we'll just say goodnight to Rick. Or goodbye forever to Rick. Because that's just too old a joke. And it does as it's told. Well, there we go. We keep, again, I just, I mean, really. I, oh, you look like that cool fucking mass murderer on TV. That just makes me feel really cool. Thank you. Excellent. Because what do you look like? Right. A bank teller? Yeah, probably. A fat bank teller. Uh, right. And I'd be so much happier if I looked like Ken, right? Preposterously fat and totally tattooed and kind of fucking ugly. That would be so much cooler. I just wish I could look like that and have a little tiny penis with no testicles. No, I don't think that's what I would want to look like. Where did you learn what you know? I learned by sticking my finger in electrical sockets, actually. I used to do that as a kid, even when I was still crawling, right? I would stick paper clips, anything metal into electrical sockets because I just found that incredible that there's all this shit in there. How does this shit get in there? Look, I put this. Whoa! How the fuck did that bastard do that? I was completely fascinated with electricity. I have to say that, Ken thinks he wrote the book now. I lived the book of electricity. I've been electrocuted quite factually, not to death, quite obviously, but just electrocuted and sometimes by substantial voltages at rather intense amperages, thousands of times. So, yes, that's how I learned. I learned by sticking my stupid fingers into stupid things and having them crushed and doing all kinds of really dumb things. I mean, I have all kinds of scars and stuff but I was lucky. I never lost an arm, nothing broken. So I did do fairly well. All right. Yeah, so I guess I'm always running for president.
Yo, what's up, Gary? When you going to party?
Whatever that means, Joe. I really don't do this socially crap, but whatever.
Why not, bro? Fucking.
Because I don't do the bro thing. This is all stuff you should know by now, Joe. I really don't do this bro duty shit.
But explain. I want to know why.
I ain't your fucking bro, and I ain't your dude. I ain't no fucking thing you own, cunt.
Yo,
I own you, fucker, if anything. This is my fucking room. You show me some fucking respect or you fuck off, Joe. God, that trolley crap. They think they own the goddamn motherfucking cunt internet. These fucking trolley personalities. I'm Joe Cool. You should just be so happy I've decided to visit you. Now, fuck you, cunt. I mean, I just can't imagine going into somebody's room and behaving that way. Fucking yob. I've been growing my hair my whole life. I mean, it's just such a stupid comment. I mean, really, Patrick, come on. Are you really that dumb? Come on. Hair grows. Everybody's hair grows. Every day it grows, okay? I can't help that. But this hair isn't like 40 years old. You do know that, right, Joe? Like, after a few weeks, each little hair falls out. I don't do it personally. I don't grow my hair. It's not like I planted hair seeds and look at my hair. I grew some hair. No, none of that happened. Well, I'm just saying, it's kind of how long have you been growing your hair? I mean, you really should know that this doesn't represent years of hair growth. I mean, years of hair growth would be like all the way across the floor. So it's already obvious that whatever the answer is, I don't know, what's the oldest hair on my head? Okay, let's all try to figure that out. What do we all guess that the oldest hair in my head is? 2 months? I don't know. I mean, the hair grows what, like an inch a week or something? I don't know, something like that. So let's calculate. Some of these hairs might be 15 inches long or something. So yeah, so some of my hair might be 6 months old. Well, I'm just saying, I've had the same length hair for 40 years because my hair has a certain density and a certain tangle ratio. And so it always inevitably falls out by the time it gets to be about 15 inches long. Then it falls out because it gets tangled or some other shit happens to it. So I don't cut my hair. So this is just what it does for 40 years. For 40 years, it just does this. But this is all, this hair isn't 40 years old. Get it? Yes. Okay. Well, triangle ratio. Well, it just should have said 1/5, whatever that means, right? Oh, it's a 1/5 thing. Okay, I get it. Yeah, 1/5. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, see, hair doesn't, no way people have like really long hair. It's usually girls because you have to take care of it, you know. You have to brush it every day and keep it out of trouble. You have to keep it from getting in tangles, and you have to do. You really have to take care of hair because the tendency is it's going to want to fall out. So unless you can really keep it from getting tangled and knotted and twisted, it's going to fall out. So everybody's hair has sort of a natural length, and then it falls out. Boy, you're just full of questions there, buddy. It's a e-cigarette, half of one anyway. Half with the nicotine in it. Let's see, another dumb question. Do you kiss your mother with that mouth? No, I've never really kissed my mother, to tell you the truth. It doesn't turn me on. LOL, that guy's on meth. Well, that's really brilliant. Not. How is it that they have allowed you to broadcast like this? And like this part is what? What's your insinuation, Patrick Blair? Of what, the Blair Witch Project? You a witch, Patrick? How long have you had your head up your ass, Patrick? Let's ask Patrick a bunch of dumb questions. Where have you buried all the molested boys you've molested, Patrick? Murdered. You have a privilege most people don't have. What is that? Are you crazy? What privilege do I have? How every user can do this. I don't know what you're talking about. They allow you to broadcast like this. I just don't know. Most users don't have the privilege. Will you demonstrate evidence of that somewhere? I don't know. I mean, that's your theory, right? So you're like, you have theories. Do you have like hyperboloid images or something to demonstrate how I've got some privilege that everybody else doesn't have? Can you draw any kind of picture of it all, buddy? Because I don't get you. I'm not using any magic or special powers. So, running out of trolls. Let's see. Your Jesus, the spirit of evil, has engulfed my church from within. Yeah, that's really neat. I need your help, just as needed my apostles and disciples. You really think that kind of crap is going to work on somebody? I don't know. Very, very strange fellow. Yes, maybe you can, Patrick. You can really find out if you go to your channel page, you know, you actually look at the settings. They actually have a page on Google or YouTube that'll show you exactly what you're qualified for. You know, it'll have little check marks by the things you can do. based on whether you gave them your phone number and stuff. So, I mean, if you gave YouTube your phone number, you could probably do anything you want to do because they like to have your phone number. So, if they have your phone number, they'll let you do just about anything. You can even monetize your videos and make all kinds of money shoving commercials in people's faces. Yes. I mean, commercials have gotten so bad. I was just kind of funny with that. Somebody mentioned something, and so I looked for local news stories. So I went to like newspapers, one that I used to deliver when I was a kid, which was kind of funny. So I went to the newspaper website, and all it was like 6 pop-up ads came up. 6, just blocking the whole screen. So you had to like click them all out so you could read the text, and then another big thing plopped onto the screen, and you couldn't, there was no X on it, and so you had to wait for it to play before you could even exit out. And you're just like, this is how people read? No, not coming back here again. I mean, just so bad. I mean, it's all gotten so bad. Yeah, well, I sort of like being up at night, to tell you the truth, and it prevents me from usually getting phone calls and all that kind of stuff, so the night is a safer time. I kind of live on call, so sometimes I have to do something. So if I do it during the day and then I got to interrupt, and so I don't like that. And the cat's asleep, so the cat's not going to bother me as much, and I just like being up at night, frankly. There really isn't any other good excuse. But yeah, it's just that I'm busy during the day. I mean, there's things to do, right? I have to do shit. So yeah, the day is kind of hard to do it during the day. And then after dinner, I'm too tired, and I got other shit I got to do before bed, and this and that. So yeah, it just adds up that this is when I do it. Better for me anyway, somehow. Since you did an Alex Jones video, will we be seeing more on the alt-right on your Amendum channel? Yeah, I don't know. You'll see what you see. I mean, everybody's a bit stupid, but it's certainly better to play videos of stuff I disagree with and agree with. But maybe I'll go back to William Bendix or whatever his name is, Stefan Molyneux. Maybe I'll do him tomorrow. I actually have to do that. I should have done it tonight. I am a bit behind. Like I said, I had all kinds of computer problems, and then the website, GoDaddy, crashed my website to pieces. I have to reinstall everything, and so yeah, I just got a lot of extra work, unfortunately. And I was already burdened by all the stuff I have to do, and now I can't get that done because I've had to waste 2 days on this shit. Well, he did say semi-off-grid, so, I don't know why Patrick's, he says, how is he off-grid when he's using a broadband connection as we speak? Well, that doesn't really mean you can't be off-grid. I mean, a broadband connection is a tiny amount of electricity compared to the standard green footprint of the average American. So in a sense, I'm way off-grid in the sense that I don't have a car and I don't have a lot of things that would, create... I don't use air conditioners and this and that and all that other stuff. But I'm not working. I mean, I'm not off grid in any sense. I don't have any other source of electricity at the moment. I've been thinking about it, but I'd rather do some passive solar than the, silly solar. Create my own steam engine or something. Something like that. My own steam turbine. The alt-right, I guess, means the ultra-right. Ultra. Like ultra-bright laundry detergent or something. I guess you should have said ultra with a U, but whatever. It's close enough in my spelling book. I don't know what that joke even is, Oreo guy. An indie bookstore. Don't know. They're probably pop-up books, right? With music. Yeah, indie bookstore. Pop-up books with music. And they dance. Yo, 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 yo. Quite silly indie stuff, really. Hurts one's brain. I mean, those people actually drink their dead. I mean, really. Oh, the guy's dead. Oh, what do we do with the body? Well, let's throw it in the reservoir. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Not entirely. Alternative right? How can you have an alternative right? That would be like perpendicular, wouldn't it? Let's call them perpendicularists. They're right to the right. They're like the double rights. Yeah, that's pretty funny, right? The double rights. They got it right both times, so that makes it wrong. Two rights make a wrong. So if you're a double rightist, you're a wrongist. Yeah. It's kind of funny, though. Maybe if you get him to take 3 right turns, it would be the cul-de-sactists or something. The U-turnists. The blowbackers. So anyway. All right. Well, there's probably not enough jibber jabber in the chat. It is funny. Like there's either too little or way too much, right? I mean, some people's chat just goes flying by so fast you can't even read it. Nobody could even respond to it. What's the point of doing it? It's like the whole purpose is defeated. They actually did that like during the debate or something. I watched some video on, when I was watching the debate. They had a chat, and I actually had to turn it off. It was just going so, it was just a bunch of these lines going by. Just no, you didn't even get a word out of it. It was just type streaming by it. It was just hilarious. Like, what's the fucking point of that? I mean, there's no slow it down button. I mean, it was just, why are people doing this? Do they think they can read each other's shit? I mean, it's just funny. Yeah, the splitting wood thing. I mean, I actually had a wood burning stove for a few years until the neighbor's house caught fire, and I said, oh, yeah, maybe this isn't worth it. But yeah, cutting that wood, man, I mean, it really did, it saves you a ton. But I mean, when I think of hauling all that wood and cutting all that wood, it really was brutal doing that all by hand. I mean, I have chainsaws now, so it won't be, wouldn't be nearly as bad. But yeah, it was a lot of wood to cut and saw and axe and hack and yeah. So you care much about science? ? You probably shouldn't have just put a question mark after that comment. You should have just tried to delete it because it's just such a bad question. So you care much about science? I just, I don't. I got into this whole thing because there's so much propaganda out there. So there's go watch a video called Dr. Quantum, and it's this whole foundations of quantum mechanics, the wave theory. It's such a piece of shit, full of tons of experiments that never took place, all lies, all conjecture. That's what motivated me to say, oh, physics is full of shit, and it's time to find a better answer. And I found it. I know, it seems incredible, right? That all these people for all this time could be looking for this unification theory like it was the most hidden thing in the universe. No, it was really easy. I mean, it's really easy. I mean, it only took me 4 years part-time, right? So in my spare time, I did a little bit of research, did a little bit of this and thatting, did some thinking, did some testing of ideas. That's why I made a channel, DraftScience, so I could draft this crap out there and have it tested. And but the truth is, I found it. I mean, it was just, it's just so obvious. Especially when I got to the gravity thing. I'm just saying, pull. Why do they keep saying pull? It's obviously a push force. I mean, it's just stupid. Push is easy. Pull is impossible. Let's just fuck this pull idea and let's explain it as a push force. And once you say, how do I make it a push force? Well, if I put a bunch of little things out in space hitting it, there you go, got it. And then you just had to get rid of the thermodynamic problem. So yeah, if you have little things hitting it, then you got to figure out, well, what happens to all the little thing particles, and what happens to, and then you say, well, it's kinetic, and then you fix that. And then when you make it kinetic, you say, well, nothing can change in the kinetic universe. And then you say, wait a minute, it can change if it's polarized. And so, yeah, it's really easy. Well, self-taught would be a silly thing to say, right? Because I did go to school and get some knowledge, some information, and then I worked in a machine shop, and obviously the guy I worked for taught me a lot of crap, and so I mean, you have to, you can't just entirely do anything self-taught. You watch somebody else doing some shit, and then you say, oh, I can do that. Yeah. And then you do it, and then you learn by doing, and you figure out, oh, they keep saying measure twice, cut once. Oh, that sounds like bullshit. And then you figure out by doing that, no, you better measure 3 times because you're an asshole. And so that part's you're self-taught that now it's not measure twice, it's measure 3 times. Because if you measure just twice, you're still going to fuck up. Well, it's not just rich people, right? We're talking about rich people who inherited it, right? So he's making some crack about just asking about rich people. That'll make him go insane. Like I say, it doesn't bother you that people who never did any work in their life get to own you. You don't mind being their slave? I do. I resent the fuck out of it. Some asshole who's never done anything, never had to contribute, never walked the tightrope without a net. Every day we have to walk it. No net, no nothing. We got to be damn careful about what the fuck we're doing. We can't just say, it wasn't me that went bankrupt. It was my legs corporation. Yes, I'm a corporation. My leg is incorporated. So yes, go sue my leg. Talk to the hand. Yeah, sue the hand because that corporation isn't me. It's just my hand. And my hand doesn't have any money, obviously, so go ahead, sue the fuck out of it. Ha ha. I mean, do you live that life? No. And these cunts who have had a net their whole life, they do these simple little jerky off tricks. Oh, look, I have an umbrella and I didn't fall off. And they got a fucking net. You know how hard it is to do it without a fucking net? Yeah, come on. Yeah, I know the push thing really does seal the deal. Oh, it does. I mean, the gravity. Thinking of gravity as a nuclear force will really just make it so. Oh, fuck! That's so obvious. That it's the electrons and the protons is where all the mass is. Those are the things that are actually being moved by gravity. That's the one that really got to me when I thought about the fact that you could just take something into pieces and all the pieces move exactly like I would move. So I could spread me out 7 miles wide in little pieces. And all those little pieces would act just like it was me. Totally wouldn't matter. You could cut me into a billion pieces and gravity would do exactly the same thing to the pieces. That's when you really start to get it. That the game is happening on a nuclear level. It's not big cosmoses and galaxies and suns and all this shit. No, it's just protons and electrons. Positive and negatively spewing force particles. Particles that are spewing bits. Colored bits, to be exact. So what do you think the solution? I'm just saying a fair fight is the solution, asshole. I'm just saying that yes, if you want to get rich, then you're rich, but your kids aren't rich. Okay, your kids are going to have to be like all the other kids on the playground. They're not going to be able to get a free ride. They're not going to get a free ticket to I Win. No, they're going to have to earn it like everybody else, and that's the way it should be. And to think otherwise is you're just lying. You wouldn't allow there to be legacy ownership of Major League Baseball. You wouldn't allow legacy ownership of the gold medal in the Olympics. You wouldn't allow legacy ownership in any other thing in the universe. You wouldn't give people Nobel Prizes because their fathers earned one. Nothing on this earth would you ever do by legacy ownership. It's obviously just cheating. It's stupid. And it's completely and catastrophically destructive to culture. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you would think Einstein would have figured out that pull is so much more complicated than push. I mean, so much more complicated. I mean, the idea of pull is just, well, what do you mean? It has to grab it. How does the force grab it? How does it pull? How does it, where does it have, how does the force have biceps? How does it do this pulley thing? Just can't make sense. But yeah, push. Rabbits can push. If anything could just run their head into something. I mean, it's just so easy to push. Yeah, if I had kids, that's right. I mean, I'm just saying that it's quite obviously inheriting billions of dollars we're talking about. We're not talking about inheriting daddy's watch or even inheriting a house. We're talking about inheriting ownership of the entire capitalist industry, all of the production of all the economies on earth. We're talking about ownership of the most important thing in a civilization, the work ethic. And we're saying, and I'm saying quite clearly that the workers are more valuable than the owners. The owners are just parasites. And as soon as they suck 1 ounce of unnecessary blood, they should be squished. Yes, I wish I had more funds at my disposal also. But I have offered, I mean, it's a serious offer. If I can get a real physicist, I mean, I'm talking about for the $5,000, it's got to be like a Michio Kaku or somebody. It's got to be somebody good, Degrassi Tyson or somebody like that. But $5,000 is pretty good for a half an hour of their time, where I can badger them about the bullshit for a half an hour. I'll pay $5,000 for that. And I'll pay a couple of grand to somebody even on YouTube who has maybe 500,000 subscribers or even 100,000. Yeah, probably for a guy with 100,000 subscribers, I'll probably pay him $2,000 for a half an hour. That's the deal. So, I mean, it's not like I can't pay something to help do this, to prove my point. Because the point is, I think I can show their physics to sound like absolute rubbish compared to my physics. And I can do it really quickly. I think I could do it in a half an hour. Well, I've never spoken to someone like you. I don't know exactly what that means, but there probably are people like me. But I mean, realistically, 7 billion people on Earth. There's gotta be somebody else like me. I just can't be that fucking. I mean, some days you say, but it's been 100 years, Gary. For 100 fucking years, nobody would stand up and say, "Wait a minute, this whole photons are smart thing is really dumb. Why are you saying the smallest thing that we know of, the smallest material object, the smallest thing that does something, we can say, hey, there's a something doing something. It's the smallest something doing something. And you're saying it's smarter than every other piece of matter in the universe. I mean, this pill bottle is dumber than a photon, because if I throw this pill bottle in a fucking slit, it's going to say, fuck you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going straight through the fucking slit. It's not smart enough to Huygens. It can't figure out that, oh, fuck, I have to make an interference pattern. I have to make a copy of myself. I have to clone myself. All right. It doesn't do any of that shit. It doesn't sit around saying, I don't know where I am. Holy fuck. No, it doesn't do any of that. So, I mean, I guess I obviously am kind of one of a kindish, in the sense that I've done something just nobody would expect it even to come out of somebody smart, like really smart. And I'm not even really smart, and I did it. And I did it on purpose. Like, not by accident. I deliberately went out to find the correct answer, and I found it. Well, I'm just saying the last debate, in my opinion, was decisively won by Clinton. I mean, she didn't seem like too much of a fucking haggy, warmongering, insane person. Everything seemed kind of wishy-washy, and I'm not going to rock the boat, and I'm not going to do anything radical and crazy. And Trump sounded like a bigoted fucking weaselly cop-out scumbag who basically said, yeah, I haven't paid any fucking income tax, right? Because I live by the Leona Helmsley book, which is only poor suckers like you fuckers pay taxes. So, yeah, fuck you. I didn't pay taxes for the last 10 years. That's right, because I pretended when I go to the IRS, I'm the poorest man in the world. But when I make a statement to the public, I say, I am one of the richest men in the world. Because I'm a lying, scuzzy, motherfucking racist cunt. And he basically says, well, what about that? Why you wouldn't rent, when you owned condos, you wouldn't rent to black people, and you got caught. Well, we settled that case, and we didn't admit guilt. We just paid a big pile of fucking money. Yeah. I mean, what a cunt answer. If somebody called me a racist, I'd want to defend my reputation, wouldn't I? You're goddamn fucking right. And so why didn't he defend his reputation? You know how much it costs you to defend yourself in court? Nothing. Because it's the other guy who has to prove the case, right? So it doesn't even cost you anything if you're the defendant. It costs you nothing. You just say, I didn't fucking do it. Prove it, cunts. That's what you do if you're innocent. It's only the guilty who need shyster lawyers and the shyster liars. The innocent don't need that. Because the innocent can point out how their evidence is a lie. Oh, whatever. The Electoral College doesn't do shit. It does exactly what the system is going to do anyway. So that's another pile of crap. The only time the Electoral College means something is when they decide that the public vote, once the election takes place, now they're going to change the results. So, yeah, breaking the public vote is where the Electoral College means something. It doesn't mean shit in the primary. There's never been a primary where the Electoral College changed the public's vote. That's only happened in the primary election. Well, obviously, asshole. So a guy comes into my room with a screen name asshole. Not brilliant. What's their thoughts on the philosophy the world is a reflection of you? Yeah, I don't think we consciously affect anything. So I don't think we have any special powers. Brains don't create any hyperboloid effects. There's no intelligence that you just walk up to somebody and bump your head on their head, and all of a sudden you have knowledge of what they know. There's no little fantasies. Let's see. And Hillary covered up Bill's rapes. How exactly did she cover them up? I mean, right there is just another statement. There's no evidence she covered up anything. She disputed what they said. Now, if you don't understand how rape is kind of an interesting charge, and that obviously it's also just people's advantages, to lie about public people, you don't know how that never happens. Um, I'm just saying, if you really think Bill Clinton had to rape women, so that's your argument, and you think Bill Clinton was smart enough to rape women without creating any evidence. So you really think Bill Clinton was that smart? This is a guy who had a blowjob in a hallway in the White House. And you're saying Bill Clinton's a smart rapist because he got away with it every fucking time. I'm just saying, it doesn't sound realistic to me. I'm sure Bill Clinton fucked a lot of women, but I'm sure that he didn't have to rape them. So I just think you're being a little bit silly. But, what can I say? It's a delicate subject. I mean, I'm all for women having the right to say somebody raped them. But again, they have to make the argument to defend the statement. They have to in some way say, hey, look, yeah, okay, we were alone in my apartment, and, well, yeah, he didn't point a gun at me, and he didn't just shove a knife in my neck, and, yeah, he didn't hit me, and, yeah, he just said, can I fuck you? And I said, yes. Well, I'm just saying, if that's your rape story, it's a shitty story. That's all. But anyway, like I said, it doesn't really matter. Character issues are, so far out of meaning anything. I'm just saying that Donald Trump's character is about his economic theory. I'm saying not paying federal taxes isn't quite the same as cheating on your wife, which Trump also did. And if you're even going to bring up that crap, right, his ex-wife in actual papers filed in an actual court said he raped her. So, those are actual court papers. Well, I'm just saying Hillary can be blamed for a lot of her bullshit. I'm just saying it's not, if you're doing this based on irrelevant aspects of character, then I think you're wasting your time. And whether any of them have kicked a dog or something, I just don't know if that's going to be terribly relevant to the fact that they're going to control our economy. And I'm just saying, if you think Donald Trump is going to control it in any way that doesn't advantage Donald Trump and his white friends, his very white friends, I think you're really kidding yourself. I mean, even the immigration issue, I'm all against immigration. But obviously the solution isn't building a $2 trillion wall that, Mexicans are going to enjoy defecating on. The real solution is employer sanctions. They work and they're cheap as fuck. So the real solution is let's have social security numbers that actually mean something. Yeah. And we know that that's really easy to do. And the only reason why we're not doing it is because neither party wants to do it for their own special interest reasons. The Democrats don't want a secure social security system because they want to make it possible for all the illegals to cheat. And the Republicans don't want a secure system because they don't want the illegals really kicked out of the country because they love the cheap labor. Well, again, I don't think to say I'm too defensive because I don't let trolls insult me. No, that's not being too defensive. That's having enough self-respect to say, I'm not going to be treated like shit by somebody who hasn't earned a right to treat me like shit. So until you Hulk Hogan me with a super stomp or something, until you prove to me that you're the better man, I'm not going to be treated like the lesser man by little cunts like you. That's just a standard of civility, fucker. I mean, I'll give you some. You want me to give you a million John Wayne quotes? Okay, but I mean, I can throw a bunch of John Wayne quotes at you, and maybe I have a John Wayne complex. But yeah, no fucker is going to talk down to me, okay, sitting on a pile of shit. No, he's not doing that. You know, if you're a shit eater, yeah, fuck you. Yeah, you ain't throwing that shit up at me, fucker. So you can fuck off, asshole. That is its name, asshole. I would rather have a businessman. He's not a businessman. He inherited the fucking money. Okay, if he would have just invested the New York real estate he had been given and just left it alone, he could have had billions of dollars by compound interest alone. New York real estate has increased in value by more than 10% every fucking year for the last 50 years. So you're just too fucking stupid. I'm concerned about the Fed and all the monopoly money and national debt. Well, again, Donald Trump is going to fix the Fed in any way. What did he say? Let's default on the debt. That's how smart a businessy man he is. Defaulting on the debt is essentially saying, let's punish all the people who didn't borrow money, okay, and slaughter them entirely. The poorest. Oh, that was some cunt who muted me. Some coward, ballless little coward. Your mommy should get cancer. I can't wait till your mother gets cancer, brain cancer, and then your father gets dick cancer, and they suffer horribly because they gave birth to a little piece of crap, a piece of scuzzy AIDS. You're nothing but a fucking virus. You're a piece of shit. You're an obnoxious, useless sack of crap that the sooner you get run over, the better the world will be. It's a fact, a fucking physical truth of the universe. This civilization will do better without you in it, fuckhead. Live with that, fuckhead. Well, all my videos are somewhat hilarious. This guy says your video about the magnet guy are hilarious. Well, all my videos are. Not all, okay. Some of them aren't very funny, but most of them are pretty funny. Well, anyway, fuck Black Lives Matter. Anti-racism is anti-white. Well, I don't even know what that means, but that's just stupid. Obviously, cops have had long warning to quit being assholes. Ever since Rodney King, they've been warned, you gotta stop being an asshole. They haven't stopped. So whatever blowback Whitey gets, he fucking deserved because he didn't clean up the mess. Fuck you, racist cunt. Well, I'm just saying, whoever's going to be president is going to be saddled with a huge problem because, you know, all of this bankruptcy is just sitting there waiting to be declared. The whole system is going to crash, and they're just going to, you know, they're going to look like assholes because they're not going to have an answer. I mean, they've used every gimmick possible. The FDIC insured $7 trillion in junk bonds. They shoved $4 trillion into the reserve accounts so they could buy their own debt because they can't sell the debt without raising interest rates. I mean, the system is just totally fucked. And, you know, Trump's delusion, you know, he doesn't have clue one. Let's cut taxes on the richest companies in the world. That'll all save us. No, that's not going to save us anything. I'm not for business taxes, don't get me wrong. But this is not the time to cut revenues by $2 trillion. I mean, that's just really retarded. How do you see this land? Oh, God, it's just a putrid way to say anything. See this land. You know, what, you mean the Native Americans' property that we stole? Yeah, I see it covered with poo. And a bunch of kids with only half a brain from the Zika virus. That's the alternative right, by the way, whatever that is. I was told I don't really own my land. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of obvious. You either have a deed or you don't. I mean, I've seen property deeds. I don't own any property, but I've actually seen them, and they kind of say right in them, this is what you own. Now, if somebody told you don't own it, then you should know whether you have a piece of paper that says you own it. I have a car. I don't use it, but I mean, I have one, and I have the title to it. And anytime I want, I can write my name on it. Anytime, it's my car. Let's see. At this point, I wouldn't even let Magnet Faggot, well, that's just unnecessary, be president just to get rid of everyone who has made DC a carrier, whatever that is. Is all this I'm saying is I don't think Trump is like a hero or anything. Well, he's not like a hero. He's like exactly the opposite. A guy who performs on a 2-foot high tightrope with a net, okay, isn't a hero. The guy who performs at a mile high tightrope without a net, that's a hero. Let's see. Does Inmendum spit on dicks before he eats them? I don't even know. I don't exactly know why you would spit on one. But whatever. Whatever, retard. Not a terribly interesting comment, in my opinion. Lacks depth and substance. But the neat thing is I can't do a damn thing about it. Because somehow the chat window doesn't provide me with the normal bibbly-babbly. Somebody has to type something. Maybe I'll type something. Just so the comment moves up. Move the comment up. Yeah, I typed stuff and it didn't stick. Yeah, it's broken. I can't comment even if I want to. Oh, there it goes. Might be working. Not sure. See if it types. No, still doesn't type. Appears to be broken. So it's probably a good time to leave is when the chat doesn't work anymore. Pretty much. Ah, there's one. Okay, so now I can get rid of the little fucker. Block the crappy user. Wasted your time typing another comment because I didn't read it. Didn't affect me any. All right, so I think I did my job for the evening. And so yes, I imagine it was a bit of a sloppy job. We got onto a bunch of side subjects that have nothing to do with the fundamental subject that needs to be dealt with on this particular website, which is how everybody's full of shit on physics. I mean, damn, pretty much. Think vegan is your favorite YouTuber? Boy, you're really retarded. Oh, well, you're a MGTOW guy. Okay, so you're a retard. Okay. Jeez. Yes. No offense, Eric. I didn't like Sarek much. He's a bit of a douchebag. But yeah, he's got big wanking hands, man. Anyway, yeah, so sorry the website's been broken. Everything's been fucked up because GoDaddy did that whole bullshit all over again. Had to go through all this fucking shit for the last 2 days. And what else? Oh yeah, my computer's fucking up again. And there's some other thing too. So anyway, yeah, so I did make you a video, but I couldn't upload it because everything was broken. I couldn't make anything happen. It was in here, but it's a really shitty video, so I'm going to redo it actually, because I actually sat there in the video saying, maybe I should just delete this because this looks like a terrible waste of time, this video. Yeah. So I'll have to fix that. I'm just so distracted. I can't keep my mind focused on anything. It's just too many things going on in my head. And such. You're not sure. You can't tell you can't tell the difference between Sarek and Spock. Yeah, that's definitely Sarek. Yeah, Sarek. It's got to be Sarek, right? Could be that new Spock guy. I don't remember seeing him in the Roby thing. Yeah. It's definitely not old Mr. Spock. I mean, it's not the Nimoy guy. It just can't be. Too weird looking. Nah, it's got to be Sarek. All right, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. How far can we travel into space? Well, it depends on whether you want to live or not. You can travel pretty far if you don't mind being blown up and shot into space in little tiny pieces. That works pretty good. It's Australia.
Hey.
Whoa, Australian guy is pretty loud. I have to turn down my volume.
It's the pseudo-Englishman.
Yeah, I said Australian guy this time.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I heard that. I might have some problems in the connection, so there's something happening with my internet at the moment.
Yeah, I hear you're all underwater over there or something.
If it's annoying, just tell me and I'll stop the connection. I do have some virus activity at the moment, so not sure what's happening.
Ah, very, very good.
You just let me know though if it degrades. I'm sure it can't degrade any worse than some of the comments though.
Nope, thought Waze was his dad. I'm trying to figure out what that is. Obama. I don't know. Anyway, so what did you say? Sorry.
If the connection degrades, you just let me know and I'll
Yeah. Well, I'll do that. You don't even have to give me. You don't have to advise me on that kind of thing. I'm very good at telling people they suck. So,
yep.
No worries there.
I was going to try and join you a few hours ago. What's the time over there?
2:19 in the morning. Yeah, I think he muted you. I should be able to unmute you. Let's see. I should be able to unmute you. It wasn't your fault. He muted you.
Can you hear me?
I can now. So, okay.
Hey, I didn't click anything here and it came up muted.
Yeah, the asshole did it. That guy who popped in. Yeah, he muted me too. I've already wished brain cancer on his mother, so I don't know if there's anything else I can do. I mean, nut cancer for his father, brain cancer for his mother. Maybe I can pick on his brothers and sisters. I wish if there is a God anywhere, any kind of force that can hear me, yes, kick the shit out of that scumbag's parents and his siblings and any of his relatives that are at all interesting. Yes, curse them all with abominations of all kind of anal warts, pain, suffering.
We need to do some combined wishing.
Yeah, exactly. We ought to wish the trolls to dead by buying bulldozers to run them over with.
Yeah, I heard you make a comment the other day in one of your videos that we should be paving roads with certain individuals, and I found that quite amusing.
Yes. It'll be cheap, and easy, because there's just so many assholes in need of being asphalt. I mean, there's just asphalt. There's asphalt candidates everywhere I go. I see asphalt candidates everywhere.
Has anybody actually? I've got a long list of questions. I reviewed some of the things we spoke about again the other day. I know it's 2 a.m. for you, I suppose, like you just said.
Yeah,
so,
well, I'm here for this purpose, so go ahead, go for it if you're in the mood.
Yeah, we can get to that in a minute. So I understand if you're a bit vague. I mean, I wouldn't be able to take questions like this during the daytime anyway, due to the complex nature of what we're talking about. But if you can handle some of them, that's really good. Okay, so I'm going to start off. I've got half a dozen different subjects based on the same topic. So I just wanted to ask about rainbows again. So I'll start off easy, if that's all right.
Thank you.
So actually, one of the things that you mentioned to me is you were saying, a university lecturer has students and he knows that the students do not understand, but they keep saying, yes, I hear you, Professor. And I actually did do that. When I watched the video, I was listening to you and I said, yep, but I didn't understand it. So what I want to ask you about rainbows is, so I'll just read from my list of questions here. So, and do correct me if I'm wrong. So I write these at about 2 or 3 in the morning too. So you mentioned one rainbow is 2 reflections and a double rainbow is the 3rd reflection inside a water droplet. I don't understand. Can
Okay,
you
so
explain how a
so just think of the water droplet as a membrane. Okay, so it's this round membrane. Now the light pushes its way in. Okay, so who knows why it just doesn't hit anything, so it goes inside the droplet, right? So first we just say that there's enough molecular vacancy, the thinness of the membrane first, plus the spacing of the atoms. So some of the photons go through the membrane. Obviously, some of them bounce off the surface. You know what I'm saying? They hit electrons, are absorbed, and then shot back out. So we're talking about the ones that get inside. So a certain percentage of the light gets inside of the water droplet. Okay, this functionally round thing. Now, the functionally round thing is made of atoms, right? So it's water molecules, is water. So we got H2O molecules. So what's going to happen is that photon's going to hit one of the water molecules on the other side of the droplet, right? So it goes into the droplet and it hits that curved space, all right, of the membrane.
It bounces out at 42 degrees.
Right. So the light has to come in at a certain angle not to get reflected off the outside. So that's sort of the rule, right? There's an angle that you have to be at first to be able to get inside of a surface, like glass. If I shoot light below 42 degrees at a piece of glass, all of the light will reflect if I go lower than that. None of the light will go through the glass, right? So if I go at a low enough angle, well, I should do it this way. If I shoot light at a low enough angle, all of the light will reflect. Do you sort of understand that? So all the light at this angle is going to bounce off the glass and none of it will go in. So at a certain angle, I can get in. So a certain kind of light is the only light. That's why the sun has to be in a certain angle in the sky. So it's usually rainbows are seen either in the morning or the afternoon because the sun has to be at whatever 48 degrees. I don't know. I mean, that's a very specific argument. So I don't want I don't want to redo what other people are saying, but I'm just saying the idea is the light has to come in sort of perpendicular to the surface of the bubble. So it's coming at a specific angle, and then it's going to hit the back, which is going to hit an atom, okay, of water, and it's going to hit an electron. And it's going to hit an electron of that reflective tension because it's part of that surface, right? So that surface is a bent surface, so the electron is going to be under a different magnetic tension. You can sort of understand that the protons would have to be on the outside and the electrons would have to be on the inside in a sense for the water droplet to form in the first place. Just for the continuity of the structure.
The main part that I'm asking you is the third reflection. I'm pretty sure this was your statement, but I could be wrong. The third reflection inside of the water. I don't understand what you mean by the third.
Right. Well, so what I'm saying is what's happening is the first reflection is at this 22-degree angle or whatever it is. Then the light could go straight through. So there's always the option that the light goes through, right? It doesn't necessarily have to hit anything. And so
I'm thinking Pink Floyd and the prism.
Right. It bounces down. So this is the second reflection here, right? And from that reflection, it goes back out of the rain droplet, or it can reflect off the surface of the droplet at another pitch. So I don't know what the exact angles are, but they're like, if you put two 22-degree angles together, you end up with a 45. And so it comes out higher in the sky than the original rainbow. So it's 22 degrees, 22 degrees higher because it took a third reflection. Okay.
Yep. I did have a look at, before we've obviously had this question, I did have a look, but you have cleared it up a little bit better.
Yeah. I don't have the angles right, but you have to add up the shape. You have to add up the shape of the circle plus the angular shape. So if you do that, you'll figure out that it's only 22-degree angles of reflection inside the bubble, or some kind of angle like that. So like I said, 3 of them would equal 60 degrees, leaving at 60 degrees. So the second one would be at 60. The first rainbow would be 45, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to remember that angle of diffraction was that, I'm going to forget the topic of the movie, but the answer is the meaning to the universe is the number 42.
Yeah. So, I'm just saying that's the reflection angle or whatever, or, it has a name for that. But, yeah, so.
Yep. Okay, so the next question is, I'm going to go back to Newton's rings again. And you must have ESP, Gary, because you made a video 2 days ago, the day after we last spoke, and you started talking about the Arago spot. And it's like, I've made this list of questions, and then you've made And in the meantime, you made another video. It's like, oh, he's answered them anyway. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to continue on just to ask them. I know you have sort of explained some of it, but the next question is regarding Newton's rings. So just bear with me. I've got 3 sentences to read out. So in the last chat, the photons coming through the ring hit the electrons on the edge of the aperture and experienced diffraction. You also explained how the thickness of the material with the hole in it, if it was an inch thick, it would not create more reflections. This makes me think that you are correct, because when the laser light travels down the tube of the laser diode, it leaves the laser tube aperture and does not create visible rings. I presume the photon emissions from the laser diode would be interacting with the water molecules and such. I'm using your language now. I'll just read that again. I presume the photon emissions from the laser diode would be interacting with the water molecules and such, and that this could be interfering or creating the phenomena, and the experiment needs to be carried out in a vacuum type environment. So that's my statement, not yours.
Yeah,
what do you
right. Well, see, the trick is with a vacuum, you can't vacuum electrons. Okay, so this is always a problem. So it's not necessarily that it's atmospheric atoms that it's interacting with. It's interacting with electrons that exists, near the surface. Like you have to kind of think of your matter as being full of all this energy, right? So it's emitting, like the sun. You know how the sun has all this fire coming out of it, and it's bulging with energy that's oozing out of it, and that all gets pulled back in, right? Very little of it has escape value of velocity, so most of it goes back into the sun again. Well, your body is doing the same thing, in the sense that your atoms and everything are jiggling all the time and emitting lots of infrared radiation, lots of stuff's coming off of them. And one of the things that's coming off of them is electrons, right? So you're going to have a field of electrons around you that got expelled from that soup and are caught in field lines. So like magnetic field lines, they find a neutral position. That is a position where the forces on them are neutralized, some sort of equal position. And especially between 2 slits, you can imagine that could happen, right? Because you would have charge on either side. And so there would be a pull and a repulsion. And the electrons don't like each other, so they try to get away from each other. So I'm just saying the idea that the field has a lot of electrons in it is perfectly reasonable if you understand it to be a charged field, which a human being will be. Yeah, as soon as you stick out, even if you're grounded, as soon as you stick out from a ground, your electrical potential changes dramatically. So, because this is basic electricity. I mean, I don't know what the rule is called for this, but it's Gauss's law and all that kind of stuff. Like, all of the equations only work with things that have a fixed shape. But as soon as you change the shape, the math gets impossible, because the electrical potential changes with the change in the shape. So if I take an object that has a charge of 1,000 volts on it, and I stick a little thing on top of it, that thing will have the maximum voltage, and everything else will be neutralized to some lesser amount. So the rest of it becomes 900 volts, and that one tip becomes 1,000 volts. And if I make a recession in it, the opposite happens. It becomes less voltage on the inside of that cul-de-sac, and then the rest of the voltage goes up, because now more surface area isn't as higher voltage. So the voltage has to move. So I'm just saying that as soon as you stick out from a ground, you're automatically a charged object. You're not neutral anymore. So your electrons are going to fly to your surface.
So I don't want to get into a physics. I'm going to change the topic just a little bit. So one of the things that I don't know if this is true, but for health reasons,
I'm listening. I'm going to listen. I'm just going to get the cat. So, but I'm listening.
Yeah, well, you take your time. I'll speak to you when you come back.
No, I hear you. So you can keep talking, and I'll just hear you.
I'll just make a statement. The last time you went after your cat, I asked in the room if that was Schrodinger's cat, and you tossed strips off me. Anyway, what I was going to say was, if you walk around, if you're supposedly, if you're unwell, if you walk around on the surface of the earth and you take your shoes and socks off, if you get grounded to the earth, it's supposed to change the value of your charge in your body, which is supposed to be more healthier. One of the professors, there's a professor in America who's involved with the charged particles of water. I think it's called the Z the Z
Well,
of
the
water.
whole subject of charge is interesting because you still have to go back to the idea of it as being a good conductor of charge. And we're not technically, our feet aren't a very good conductor in the sense that, you know, without moisture, there's no, you know what I'm saying? We don't conduct very well unless you have that salty sweat on the bottom of your feet or something. You're not going to be a very good conductor. So it's very good. It's very easy to insulate us, is all I'm saying, from ground. That's why we can have that sparky finger thing, is because we can pick up charge or lose charge, but we can also be insulated. You know, we can become whatever the surface charge is, and the surface can be a carpet, which isn't also charged. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the charge is not necessarily grounded, so carpeting is very badly, is highly insulated from ground.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Like an attic, like the higher you go in a building, the more likely you are to pick up a static charge, ironically.
Why?
Well, because you're getting further and further from a hard ground. You know, the ground has to go through. It has to go through things that are less and less conductive. So it takes longer to dampen the field. So the field takes a longer time to absorb any charge, excess charge you create. So even though you're semi-grounded, that semi-ground takes a long time to dampen because it has to go through a lot of conductors to get to the solid ground.
See, my mind starts thinking that, you know, capacitive plates and separation of distance, and right, but
yeah, it's like with airplanes. Airplanes create a tremendous amount of static electricity, you know, but it's because of their partly because of their elevation, because they get further and further from a hard ground.
Yeah, that's probably. Apparently, when airplanes are traveling through volcanic ash, you can quite often you'll see a build-up of charge on the wings, and you create like a St. Elmo's fire effect.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying part of the reason is sort of the distance from ground, because it takes a longer time for any associated grounding function like moisture to actually function, to drag off some of that charge through Elmo's fire, so whatever they call it. You know, the idea you can lose charge without a spark. You know what I mean? The charge is just, you lose it by a little.
Bleeds off.
Yeah, it bleeds off, like, and they call that like Elmo's fire or whatever, but it's you know, it just bleeds off by giving off a tiny bit of ultraviolet light, and that's it. You know, but it's a real loss of your charge through the atmospheric conductor. So go ahead and get to your better question.
Creating some sort of a plasma type effect that you think you're seeing.
Exactly. Well, it's not really plasma. I wouldn't call it.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's the word they use, but yeah, I just, you know, I'd have a more rigid definition of a plasma.
Yeah, I have to use. Well, we have to start somewhere. I know plasma's the correct word.
I'm just being an asshole sometimes. So sometimes
no, you're fine.
You don't have to take it. It's just a personal gripe. You know, it's not a serious gripe.
No, that's all right. I understand if you get frustrated anyway. It wouldn't bother me, Gary. I mean, I find your rants entertaining, but I'm here for the information as much as you are. So I'm going to move. My next question's about vortexes, and I don't mind if you don't have an answer, because this is something I've looked into. But so with regard to the Arago experiment, I was thinking about vortexes, and I could be completely wrong here. So I'm going to ask, are you familiar with the vortex rings and smoke cannons that produce a vortex ring? So basically, there's some guys on YouTube, they get a barrel, they get a rubbish bin, they cut a hole in it, they fill it with smoke, they put a rubber diaphragm on the back, and they start pumping it. And all of a sudden, these vortex rings come out. So I wonder if there is some relationship between vortex rings and Newton's rings. Is there? Do you think that's possible, or is it completely different subject matter? Because
well, I'd say it's completely different in the sense that obviously light diffraction, you know, when you start making comparisons to physical friction diffractions, it's kind of a stretch. That's why I don't like them comparing water to light, because water waves interfering are very different than what light's doing anyway. I mean, light's moving the speed of light, and it's completely, there's no friction involved, there's no slowing down, there's none of those effects, where obviously what you're talking about has everything to do with friction and slowing things down. So, you know, but it still is a diffraction in the sense that the angular change is part of the friction, you know. But yeah, you know, but understanding the entire concept of that centrifugal, you know, the pressure, the fact that the field pressure you can sort of understand, like, okay, here's water at, let's say a water vortex, because I know more about them than I do the air
It's
ones.
fluid
But it's the
dynamics.
Same thing.
It's the
It's the same
Yep.
thing. It's a traveling wave. You know, that's a standing, traveling hyperboloid. Oh, I could use Ken Wheeler's rhetoric.
no.
Okay, this is a hyperboloid. I mean, okay, the donut. This is the true donut in function. Okay, one of these rings is one of these hyperboloid donuts. And, you know, but all it's really doing, right, from my perspective, okay, so I'm just going to, this isn't anything I want to be written down. As Gary says, this is how it happens.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep,
I'm just going based on this pressure rule that we know the water is under pressure. And we understand, you can sort of understand that if something gets going on like a roller coaster or anything gets going on the sides, like a racetrack, and the cars, you elevate the side of the track, and now the cars can go flat against the, you know, gravity doesn't push them down anymore.
Yes, on the boom. We call it a boom.
Right. So that's what's really happening, is that molecules are being forced to ride the pressure.
Yes, that's what happens in fluid dynamics.
So that's what's deflecting them, is a constant bombardment of the pressure. So they're going at a velocity that's not compatible with the water. So their velocity is faster than the water can absorb. So let's say the water has a wave frequency. You know what? There's a word for that. You know, its capacity to transmit energy. There's a function for that for all mediums, in the sense that what the medium can tolerate. Like if you vibrate something really fast in water, the vibrations won't mean anything to a certain point because you can't move the water that fast. Yep. You know what I mean? You're going fast. The water goes this way, and you're hitting it again, and it's already going that way. You know what I mean? You can't push something that's already moving the way you're pushing. If you get my point.
No, I don't.
Okay, it's like a paddle ball. If you had like one of those balls that bounce off a paddle,
yep.
Right? Well, if you tried to bounce it faster than the ball can move, that is, the ball has a maximum velocity. If you're moving the paddle faster than the maximum velocity of the ball, you can imagine that you would be hitting it 3 times before the ball even came back.
Yeah.
Right? The ball hasn't returned yet, and you're hitting. You know what I mean? So you're not hitting anything. So water will do the same thing. You'll blow it out, and you can't hit it again until it dampens, until it rebounds back to the surface to be hit again. So you have to wait for it to rebound before you can hit it again. It's like even current and electricity. It takes time for electrons to go back into a conductor, so you can't have too high a frequency, because it'll be too high a frequency for the amount of electrons you're trying to move. They can't get back into the conductor before you're pushing them again. So you can't push them because they're not there.
I have to say yes at this point.
Well, I'm just saying, when electrons are moved in a conductor, what I'm basically arguing is that they're pushed. So they're evacuated from the conductor. And then the reason why a transformer has to work on alternating current is that you have to let the electrons back in. So you have to stop the force to let the electrons fill the void again, and then you can push them again. But you can't push them till you let them back in. So the bigger your conductor, the lower the limit on the frequency that you can push. Because of the time it takes for the electrons. Well, I'm just saying to get back in. So I'm just saying, well, anyway, so back to your point, I'm basically just saying that that mechanism is that there's a constant field pressure, and the molecules that have too fast a velocity can't get through the membrane. You know what I mean? They can't push through into the field water, so they keep bouncing off of the molecules that are stagnant, you know, less velocity, okay, because their velocity is too high for them to push through. So they're just riding they end up riding a circle because they keep reflecting instead of absorbing.
It's a good explanation. I'm going to do what I usually do. I will rewind the tape and I'll watch it again. I'm going to move on to my next question, though. This is about the Arago spot. So this is where they fire the laser at a ball bearing, and one of the experiments, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but I saw an experiment where they fired a laser at a euro coin, and the laser light splits around the ball bearing, and it forms a bright spot in the center on the back wall. So I'll just read to you what I've written down here. Correct me if I'm wrong too, Gary. So I don't want to quote you if I'm incorrect, but surface electrons around the edge of the ball bearing draw the photons into the center of the spot. do you think they say it proves it is a wave because the end result looks like a pond of ripples? If so, I think that's absurd. So I'll just read it again. So it's a question, Gary. Do you think they say it proves it's a wave because the end result looks like a pond of ripples? Why are they saying it's a wave with regards to
Right. Well,
Argo?
here's a simple. Well, so I hope it'll be. Well, let me maybe make this a different color, and then you'll see better
Yep.
what I'm saying. But and maybe I'll put a little electron in here just to give it some kind of. Okay. All right. So say this is a surface. Get Sarek out of the
So
way.
that's the edge of the ball bearing?
Okay, so let's say, but it's any surface. So let's say there's a surface here and it creates field lines. So think of the field lines in 3 dimensions though. So you could think of these field lines being going laterally this way. So if I turn this way, you'd get the idea that they bend around the edge of the thing. So if I have a surface like this, they're coming around the front and going to the back. Around the front going to the back, okay?
And that's going around the ball bearing, right?
Right, right. And so there's 2 places that you could have a possible diffraction. Let me put it this way, I think is better. All right, so when the first thing comes in, the field line is going to be going this way, right? It's coming from the side going out. So the electron will move, generally speaking, at that corner in that direction. So you can get the idea that the light hits it here, diffracts that way. Now, if it misses these electrons and hits the electron at the back corner, it does exactly the opposite because now the electron will move this way. So the diffraction will be in the opposite way. So on the edge of the ball bearing, the light is diffracting both directions. It's not only diffracting from the far edge down, it's diffracting from the front edge up. So it's creating pattern going both ways, not just one.
And this is what's producing the rings, right?
Well, yes, exactly. Because these angles are going to be fixed based on position. That's why I drew a couple of field lines here, right? So the closer you are, the tighter that angle, right? Because that angle has to bend at a higher degree, you know what I mean, to get flat. So if you're making a, you know what I'm saying, the angle, this angle is going to be sharper for each, the further you go out, the angle gets duller and duller. So it's less and less of an angle. So here might be a 40-degree diffraction. Here would be a 20-degree fraction. Here would be a 5-degree diffraction. So the closer, further away you are, the less this angle of diffraction gets. So this angle would go in the further away you were. And the closer to the surface, the higher this angle goes.
Okay, this is
sine theta.
Yeah, after I watched the Arago experiment and listening to what you told me about, so the next day after we spoke, you made a video about just this. You were saying how the electrons suck in the photon and it gets stuck to it. In my mind, you're not saying this, but in my mind, I imagine a cog. And as the cog is spinning, the photon gets stuck in a tooth of the cog, and the tooth of the cog is an electron. It spins around, and you're saying it zooms it out, right?
Yeah. I think a better way to think of it is as the photon's like a rider. Okay, yes. The rider has velocity though. So you're thinking about the rider jumps on the skateboard, right? So I jump on a skateboard, I give it velocity, and then when I jump off, the skateboard stops and I go back to having velocity. Okay, so think of it in that term, like the photon's going into the electron's absorbing the energy in the sense that all the little pieces of the electron are now going to be pushed a little bit, right? So if there's 1,000,000 electrons, you would do the math would be, here's the speed of light divided by 1,000,000, because now I'm going to spread over the entire 1,000,000 fish inside the electron, right? So the speed of the photon is now going to be spread over 1,000,000 things. So it's going to be 1,000,000 times slower. And that's how fast the electron moves while the photon's in it. So it moves 1,000,000 times slower, which would be whatever. Maybe it's 50 feet a second. Who knows? It's still a fast speed, but I'm just saying it's going to move that speed. And then when it hits the edge of the field line, or it hits some other field that's too strong for it to keep moving, right? So there's field energy that's going to stop it. or it's going to crash into another electron and exchange positions, right? It hits the one electron, stops, the other electron moves. So either those two things happen, but regardless, when it regurgitates the photon, it will stop moving. So the release of the rider means the skateboard can stop.
Okay. So my question is, so these electrons, these photons, when they get stuck to the electron and they get spat out again, that's creating the ring type Arago rings, if that's okay to call them the Arago rings.
Well, it just depends on the fact that the electrons sometimes don't travel in a straight line. So if you understand that simple idea, that depending on the condition of the electron, it won't go straight. It won't go the same direction as the photon who hit it. So it goes in a new direction. So when the rider jumps off, he's going to be at a new angular momentum.
But this is what bothers me with this explanation, right? So I've done a bit of thinking about this, and you obviously know more about it than I do. If they're coming off at different angles, why would it produce rings? Because I would think that it would have a scatter pattern where you would have, do you understand?
The ring is a scatter, right? The on part, the on part usually is more on in the very center and less on at the fringes. So the fringes do get faded. It almost looks like a bulge of light. You know what I'm saying? It's not a flat, perfect thing. It's a bulge thing, which indicates that the diffraction isn't perfect. But it is consistent in a sense that it's going to be within that range. And the off part, I think, is obvious that the space between the rings is much wider than the space out where the actual field lines are. So if you look at a field line, it's a very narrow road. And then there's a big hunk of empty space, and then there's a little narrow road.
Yeah.
So neutral field lines are much smaller than the space between them.
It's basically just the single split diffraction pattern within.
Right. You really just think of it as it's really just nothing, right? No rings. It's really just blank pattern, and then you paint the rings. You know what I mean? The dead spots aren't anything. The rings are the something. The dead spots are the nothing. So, I don't know how to say. So you're just saying.
No, it's okay.
No electron creates no space. So the places where there's no electrons, that angle can't produce light. So that's what I'm just saying is you have to kind of understand that the space between the field lines is the big space, and it's vacuous. There's no electrons there because electrons hate each other. So electrons are all piled up on the field lines.
Yes, but I heard you say this the other day about the field lines. You didn't say this, I'm thinking this. The field lines are actually, to some degree, determining where those photons are going to strike in the pattern, yeah?
More importantly, the fact is that no matter how big you make the box, the corners of the box are always going to be similar.
Hang on. We're talking Arago rings or slit pattern?
Well, we're talking about the field line. The field line has a kind of, it goes from vertical to horizontal to vertical, but it doesn't do it with square corners. So that's what I mean by box.
Can you draw a diagram?
Yeah.
And while you're drawing
you think about it like a magnet. A magnet's field lines are kind of obvious in the sense that they're kind of going around the magnet. I mean, this is an exaggeration, but this would be the magnet here, and the field lines are basically going around it. Now, obviously, because of the south part of the magnet starts affecting it here, this rounds off, okay, because there ends up being a pollution of the red magnet and the black magnet. You know what I mean? The north and the south poles are having combined energy here, right? Because you can see the south pole now. So whatever part you can see from any one position is about what you can see. So this gets rounded for no other reason than because the field energy from the bottom part of the magnet is now affecting the neutral position. Okay, they're now combining, and the more they combine, that's why it rounds the way it rounds. So that's why the square magnet creates round field lines, is because it's really about the two forces and how much they're mixing. So all I'm saying is that the tendency of that curve is going to be a consistent parabola. It'll be a bigger or smaller parabola, but it'll be a consistent kind of parabola. You know what I'm saying? It's going to get Well, that's probably the wrong words to use, because eventually this.
No, I understand you.
It's almost straight, but I'm just saying that's why the field lines are a specific position, because within the distance of electrons hating each other is this distance, right? So this distance has more to do with electrons who hate each other than anything else.
Okay, so let me just interject. So I just need to clear it up. Those field lines are what helps to determine the pattern.
Right. Because the electrons are traveling those are like roads. The electrons are traveling them. Now, if the electron hit an electron, if the photon hits an electron that's on this line, it's going to go straight. So we have no problem, right? So these are the ones you don't see, because this one behaves just like an electron it didn't hit. You know, the photon will behave just like the photon that hit nothing if it hits it on the straight part. So you see what I'm saying? So the only part that can possibly ever be relevant is these areas. These are the areas where something will happen. You know, deflection will happen, because the electron can't travel straight here. No straight line.
I've got my answer. I'm sure you're imparting more information than I can take in again, but
well, I just mean all you need is the basic idea that what really is dictating the wave-like appearance is the wave-like appearance of the field lines. Field lines have a wave-like appearance. Right?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking the other day.
It's duplicating that wave is the wave they're seeing in the pattern.
Okay, so this sort of brings me back to what I asked earlier. I've just got to flip through my notes here. I'd written something about okay, so my question was, do they think it's a wave? Because when you look at the Arago spot, right, when you look down on it, if you imagine dropping a pebble into a pond, just see the ripples. Is that why they're calling it waves? Why are they calling it waves? It's not waves.
Well, the problem is that they associate frequency with.
That's not a wave.
Well, I know, but that's what they're doing. They're associating all movement through a medium. They're calling that a wave. So once you do that, anything that stimulates that frequency, they're going to say it's waving. Like if I move a rope to create a wave in the rope, they're going to say my hand is waving. Well, that's not really what my hand is doing, because I have to go at a quicker velocity. You know what I mean? I'm moving my hand much quicker than the speed of the rope wave. You know, so it's not even the same. It's the same frequency, but obviously the movement required to create it has nothing to do with waves, in the sense that it's not a consistent sine wave. I have to jerk the rope up and jerk, you know, if I want to create a wave in a rope, I have to jerk it up. You know, it can be a little movement, but it has to be a very fast movement to cause the wave to propagate. The wave won't propagate unless I move much quicker than the speed of the wave.
Yeah, so we're on the same page. So basically my next statement is, what is a wave? When I did electronics, the term waves was an analogy to describe the frequency of an occurrence only, and not a visual model of what was happening. The frequency of an occurrence with its amplitude, the electrons came at intervals, but they don't literally travel in waves. The amplitude was a reference to voltage and not a real world experience of the electron traveling as a sine wave or a sawtooth wave. They are just simulations of diagrammatical ways to express the mathematics. Particles don't travel as waves, but they are present in waves. They may not be moving. This is something I was thinking out.
Yeah. Well, it does get tricky, right? Because technically my lights are running on 60 hertz here in America, right? So the voltage is alternating at 60 hertz. And technically the light coming off the bulb isn't a constant stream of particles, right? It's a big giant stream, then a non-stream, then a big giant stream, and a non-stream.
Not a wave, though.
So it's. I'm just saying that it has every appearance of a wave as it's manifest. Just like a radio, they call them radio waves, and I've never really objected to that term, in the sense that, well, yeah, because a radio wave is producing them so different than light. Light you think of as little rays of photons, right? Where radio waves are big blobs of a field of photons, right? That could be separated by miles. So you have a big blob of photon, a big blob of photon, a big blob of photons. And it doesn't seem like there's the same connection, in the sense that the energy is affecting maybe atoms, not just electrons. You know what I'm saying? That the field energy is so dense, it's affecting a lot of particles all at once, because it's a big, huge amount of particles that show up. and then another big, huge amount where light's completely different in that it's a little discrete amount and then a little discrete amount. And so I'm just saying that's the confusion, right? Because if we saw visible light like we see radio waves move, we would be even more convinced it was waves because it would look more like waves. But I'm just saying it's all just about the appearance. It's just an appearance problem and how you think about it. But you're right. Yeah, it's just frequency, and we're just talking about mediums that have waves. Mediums carry the energy. They convert it into...
See, even the use of the word radio wave, it sets people up to fail right at the beginning. It's like a biblical question and saying, how did God make the earth? Well, you've set it up at the beginning that there's no other option that, hang on, God didn't make the earth, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that it has every appearance. Like I said, it fits the category in the sense that, okay, like you could say that about like a kangaroo. I could say it's a rat. Because I could say, yeah, it's got a tail and it's got the ears and it's a vegetarian and blah, blah. I could make excuses to say it's a rat, but it's not really a rat.
Yeah. So we're in agreement on our understanding of what is and isn't a wave. And to even, probably shouldn't say this, I'm probably right though, but waves at the beach, I mean, they're not technically, well, that's probably why I shouldn't have brought it up.
Well, I'm just saying the word wave is always going to be a messy word. So I'm just saying because it really doesn't describe anything specific. It's just describing timed clumps. And you can have timed clumps for like cannonballs. You wouldn't say it's a wave of cannonballs coming. You know, no one would say that. You
can have a wave of kangaroos being shot at you.
But they do say a wave of bullets, right? They'll say that sometimes, like a machine gun is shooting a wave of bullets. So, you know, so it's a word that just doesn't have any value, really. And in physics, it's one of those words in physics that should just kind of be put somewhere and say, let's just deal with things that have frequency and amplitude. Let's just deal with this idea of magnitude and movement. And let's get away from trying to describe the movement as being in a class called reptile or something. It just doesn't work because it's going to end up being dinosaurs.
So the first thing that comes to my mind, if you were to re-term it from waves to something else, you could, I'm going to chuck this in there, you could say it's like a string of bullets, right? So that dum, dum, dum. What do you think's a better term other than calling it waves? Or what's the correct term?
Well, I think we should use the words like rays of radiation. Okay, we can use words like rays to describe things. And then we could use even... let's see, for the mass of particles, like radio waves is just so interesting, you know, just when you think about how many tons are moving, you know what I'm saying, at a time. It's just this giant...
I don't know what a ton is. I don't know what a ton is.
A ton would be the first part of a photon. Like a photon is its frequency. So obviously there would have to be two of them. You know what I mean? You can't measure frequency unless you have two.
Yep.
Okay, so that's all I mean by ton was the 1/2 of the photon. There has to be the first photon, then the second ton, to have a photon. You can never see light if only half of it got to you, right? So if like a radio wave, if that first wave of the radio wave hit you, and you never got any second one, you wouldn't know it was a radio wave because it have no frequency, right?
Yeah.
So without so I'm just saying the ton would be the fact that you're acknowledging that there takes two of them. That's all I'm saying.
So should it be called? Is it a stream of tons or a ton? Like even, what would you call? So what are you saying it should be called apart from?
Well, I don't know. I didn't really think about it ahead of time, but I would even say a front. You could say like wave front, or you could
you can think about it in your off time.
Some better terminology. But the word wave, I'm just saying I don't even know if I even need to use it. I guess is all I'm saying. I think I could still describe things without ever using the word wave. I could still just I could just say. Photons, you know, tons created at a an r squared vector. You know what I mean? So they're spherically produced as if it was a single point that produced them. Blah blah blah, something like that. Because that's the truth.
Yeah. So because if you're having a discussion on evolution, you wouldn't bring up words like God because it's the wrong word for the conversation, right? So this use of the word radio wave needs to be changed to radio particle, radio ton, or radio something because it's setting people up to believe that it's waves and it's not. So I'm just being anally particular, but
Yeah, well, they're all photons, right? The whole spectrum is made of photons going all the way up to X-rays and kind of gamma rays. So they're all the same thing, just at a different frequency. That's all you're changing is the rapidity of the occurrence. And
The
so
frequency.
yeah, so it's all the same thing. So, you know, but clearly it does, it can appear different, and then it's pretty hard to imagine a laser beam of radio, right? Radio laser
Fair enough.
beam is a little bit tricky to imagine.
No, of course, radio is not the right word, but the actual a laser beam of particles and a radio of particles. Anyway, we can think about this later. So last night I watched, and I'm new to this subject, right? So I got onto a guy called, you've mentioned his name, I think it's Richard Feynman, and I listened to him, and he did explain. Now, I don't know if he's wrong or right, but he did make some sense in some areas, but in other ways he also reminded me of that guy that was talking about the two-split experiment. He's quite the showman. He's quite an entertaining character, and when I see things like that, it concerns me because
Yeah, the Brian Greene, I guess you're talking about, somebody.
no, actually, so in comparison to Brian Greene, Richard Feynman was quite similar. He's very entertaining, theatrical. He's quite a showman. I could see why people would believe him, and that's what concerns me, is if people like that are coming across trying to sell you something, they might be trying to sell you a second-hand car, right? So I listened to him explain about radio waves, and he said that's all the same thing through the entire spectrum. It's all the same thing, only their frequency's changing, and humans have evolved to a point where we can visually see part of that spectrum. So
yeah, well,
what do
we
you
see it
feel?
because it's maximized for information. So that's the trick of it, right? See, X-rays aren't maximized. X-rays could do greater detail, but X-rays are useless because they go through too much stuff. You know what I mean? So they wouldn't give you a good vision of the world. So it just happens to be
like
that the density of light is very high, first off. So you have a great deal of visible light. And that's why we're made to see it, is because there's so much information being produced all day long. Okay. So if you only saw in infrared or ultraviolet even, your image quality would be much less because the density of particles would be much lower. So, and everything would be blocking it. Lots of things are completely opaque to those two forms of energy. So the number of opaque things would be much higher. I mean, you'd see through some things, you know what I mean? But you know, a lot of things would be just opaque. I mean, windows wouldn't be transparent anymore. Lots of things would no longer be, you know, useful to see, to be able to see the world. And you certainly, so whatever information you gain, you lose. So, and the fact that the fact that our bodies don't really want to play with ultraviolet light probably has more information in it, but it's really dangerous to let it in your body. So it's probably just the fact that your body's cells can't really deal with the high energy of ultraviolet, so they just leave it alone. The frequency is too high. It can do too much damage to the cells because everyone that gets away is like a radical. You know what I'm saying? It's like a terrorist. So your body can control visible light and contain it and keep it from going astray, because your cells are very opaque to it, so it can reflect it inside of things. It can hold it where it can't really hold ultraviolet light because it's already starting to do the X-ray thing. It's already starting to go through everything.
Yeah, you're actually mentioning some of the things that he said. He mentioned that a pit viper can see in infrared and that bees look in ultraviolet. But my question that I would like to ask you is, so is he correct in what he's saying, that all of these particles that are in the spectrum from radio waves to ultraviolet to what we can see in the color scheme, I'm having a little bit of a hard time discerning a radio wave from a light wave. Is a photon different? What is it? Can you help me?
Well, I'll make it, you know, I'll draw a picture, of course. You know, the easiest way to do it, right? So I just draw the picture. I drew this the other night, but it's a good subject to go over.
Thanks.
So this is all we're talking about, is a difference in potential frequency. Okay, so this would be infrared. This would be ultraviolet. Ultraviolet's about twice. Okay, it's half the wavelength. That means the distance between the tons is half the distance. So for the same amount of time, right? Because they're all moving the speed of light. The same amount of time, you can get twice as much of this, into a shot as you can this. So you can fire more of this. That's why it's often associated with having more energy, right? People say ultraviolet has more energy. Well, it only has more energy if you actually have more tons. But you could
this is where I'm stuck, right?
You could have this scenario, right? So in this picture, we have a radio wave, say, of 3 miles. We have 1 ton of ultraviolet and 1 ton of infrared. All 3 of these have exactly the same energy. So if you only shoot 2 bullets, it's still just 2 bullets, 2 bullets, 2 bullets. And the energy level just has to do with the tipping point. So we're back to the argument about if I want to knock something over and I'm throwing rocks at it to do it, there's a certain speed I throw those rocks that'll be just perfect to make the thing fall over. And if I don't go that speed, if I throw the rocks at the wrong time, like when the thing's going this way and I throw the rock, that's the wrong time to throw it, right? I mean, if I want it to tip this way. So, and I got it wobbling. The last thing I want to do is keep throwing the rock when it's coming back this way, because that'll stabilize it rather than knock it over. But if I keep throwing rocks, if I keep throwing rocks when it's swinging the downside, I'm going to eventually knock it over. Well, the same effect is happening inside the electron. So when a photon goes in, it's going to kind of tip the electron or not tip the electron. So if it comes in at the right frequency, it tips the electron and the electron moves. If it comes in at the wrong frequency, it can't trip the electron doesn't move, and the force just exits again. So it's like jumping on the moving horse. You have to jump on at just the right time or you're going to miss.
Adam, maybe I didn't ask my question correctly. So what I'm trying to establish is, are the particles in a radio wave the same as the particles in a photon?
That's what I just said. So I don't know how you missed it. Look, they're all the same, okay? They're exactly the same thing. Little round thing with the same momentum, same speed.
I'm trying to confirm it. Maybe I didn't take it in, but I just want to confirm it with you because that's what I think, right? So what the guy Richard Feynman said last night makes perfect sense, but I'm just trying to confirm that what you think, he thinks, and what I think are all the same.
Yeah, well, Feynman is good when he stays on subject and he gets into that big picture stuff, because then he'll concede that maybe it is all a checkerboard, maybe it is all a mechanism, and it's just so dense we can't see it. You know what I mean? We're such a tiny piece of this giant field that we can't see the field through the forest. He's actually said things like that. But he's also said something very simple, like photons do one thing. They go from point A to point B in a straight line. That's not a very quantum mechanical statement, right? I mean, even though he's a big quantum mechanics guy, that's obviously a particle kind of statement, right? Point A to point B in a straight line is that's a pretty Newtonian statement. But that's his statement. And he knows that it's the electron. It's when the photon interacts with the electron that the photon does funky shit. And he kind of knew that, but he also knew, well, the math for quantum mechanics works, so we'll tell the unicorn fairy story because the math works. So that was the duality of Feynman. Feynman was basically saying, yes, I get this particle theory thing. I get it because it damn well acts like a particle. But we know the math works if we turn it into fucking Mary Poppins. So because it works to do Mary Poppins math, we're just going to pretend that particles are Mary Poppins, and let's just do that. Yeah.
So obviously you've spent a lot of time on the subject and I haven't, but what I'm sort of over the last week since I've done a little bit of reading is it looks like there's been an argument for the last 300 odd years, from what I can tell, people like Isaac Newton who think, so the argument is, and you've mentioned this, they're arguing whether it's particles or waves, and to you and I, we believe it's particles, and for some reason they've decided to teach people it's waves, which I think, and you think, is the wrong choice. And
well, it sounds back to that push argument again too, because it really goes back to the description of gravity. So they call it mock gravity, but they have this contrived gravity that is actual particles because the guy came up with it 300 years ago, and Newton liked it. But then the problem was they couldn't make it mechanically work because they were thinking of it as like asteroids hitting planets and making the planets move, and that would create all kinds of noise and heat. So they weren't thinking about it in a kinetic sense. Remember when I drew the kinetic drawings of the straight lines going through each other?
Yep.
You know, the X's. See, that's what makes this whole thing work, is you have to have a mechanism that makes it possible for you to have a bunch of interactions that do nothing. Okay. Okay. But they only do something in certain circumstances. So when I'm wearing a blue suit, I affect the earth. When I'm not wearing a blue suit, I go right straight through the earth. And that's what kinetics allows you to do, is turn the force on and off using polarization. And it gets rid of all the friction. It gets rid of all the heat. So that's why, so the original version of particle gravity didn't work, because you had this problem of saying, well, what if I'm just flying through space? Then I'd be keep hitting all of this crap in the field, right? The field is full of stuff. And if I'm moving through the stuff, I'm going to hit more stuff in front of me than the stuff behind me, and I'm going to slow down. So they couldn't explain how you could maintain momentum through the field if you were moving through a field that was hitting you in some other way than kinetic. You know what I'm saying? So if you had to absorb the energy of the interactions, then you'd have an energy problem. But if you make the energy kinetic, and that it's always goes straight through, it's just the polarization that's staying behind. So in my theory, you're basically taking the matter out of it. And you're just saying it's really just about polarization. It's not about the things moving. It's about the part of them that's not moving. And the part of them that's not moving is the suit. They just keep going through the suits.
The hat.
The hat, right. The hat's not moving. The hat's not a material force. The hat's riding on the forces frictionlessly. So it's identifying where the force is going, but it's not really a force. It has no energy. It just goes where the energy takes it.
And this is what you're claiming.
I'm just saying it solves what's called Lesage gravity. Lesage gravity was that's the guy 300 years ago. Newton liked it. He almost bought it. The guy exchanged letters with the original guy who came out, but the original guy was like some French guy, Lafrangier or something. And he actually talked to Newton, and Newton sent him a letter and said, yeah, I like it, and blah, blah, blah. And then like 10 years later, Newton hated it. And then the Lafrange guy got assassinated for some reason, or something happened. Well, anyway. And then this Lesage guy found his papers 100 years later, and he resold the idea. But everybody just, like Feynman discounts it in one of his lectures by saying, well, if you're running in the rain, more rain's going to hit you from the front than from behind, and therefore this can't work. So that was his explanation. That was his debunking. And clearly it's not a very good debunking, because in the same paragraph, Feynman said, well, there is this idea, and then he explained it. And he said, if you make these all particles, he said, and then he said, the math works perfect, except it doesn't work, right? So he said it was perfect, explains gravity, and then he says, oh, but it doesn't work because, yeah, you can't have velocity and not bang into more of the field. So as long as you can make the field invisible, in a sense, when you need to, it works.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about I'm just thinking why these people would choose to.
Well, I'm just saying, why wouldn't they work a little harder? Because it's such a logical idea. The idea of the pushing force, it makes why the checkers would move into each other. You know what I mean? If I put 1,000,000 ball bearings in a box with 2 checkers, you could watch it actually physically happen, that the random actions will force the 2 checkers to crash into each other, because they will shield each other. They'll shadow each other from the pressure, because it's a straight line force. Any straight line force can't go around the corner, meaning it can't fill the void between us. So if there's a void between us, we cast shadows on each other. Those shadows are real lacks of pressure, and nothing will go in between the you know what I mean? Nothing can go around it to avoid to hit you. You know what I'm saying? I create a complete shadow on you, a complete lack of pressure. And straight line force, like light, doesn't go around corners most of the time, right? Most of the light doesn't go around the corner. So you're going to be shielded from the force. You're not going to see the light. There's going to be less pressure between us, and we're going to push right into each other. So particle works so perfectly. It's such an obvious push mechanism. It holds things together so well. Anything you put in a field of ball bearings will do exactly this. It'll be clumped together. I mean, it works perfectly. And it's just like, why didn't they try a little harder?
I'm going to say yes again, and I'm going to move on. I will review what you've just spoken about again, because I'm sure it's a very detailed explanation. And as the usual ones, when you've said it, when I
Well, I
watched,
just mean it's such an illustration of the obviousness of the fact that push force should have been their default. They should have wanted that to be the answer because it's the Occam's razor simple thing. The simple thing pushes, the complex thing pulls. Pull is a complex idea. Push is an easy idea.
yeah, I know you know what you're talking about, but I am going to.
Well, I'm just saying you can think of that one and you can say you understand, right? You don't have to think about pushing a door open. You can just walk into it, right? It requires no mechanical anything. You just have to fall on a door to push it open.
No,
To
I wasn't
pull
going
it
to.
open, you have to do something a lot more complicated.
I wasn't going to challenge you on the point, but what I was going to say is I personally don't like Occam's razor as an explanation that the simplest thing is the correct answer.
Well, I would just say for physics, I think it's a sensible first premise. Like
Okay.
do no harm in medicine or something. It's not like it's a rock solid never do any harm. It's just saying that the first idea should be that we're thinking about a simple mechanism, not one more complicated than even us, right? So you're not looking for a god. You're looking for an imbecile that makes gods.
Yes, because why would you don't need a complex thing to make simple.
Right. Simple things can make complex things. Complex things don't make simple things.
Yeah. What's that? Flagellum. See, I'm not that stupid. You know what flagellum are, right?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so I'm going to move on to. I'm just going to go back up the list. So I'm just going to pick you up on something else that you mentioned the other day. You picked up a magnet in your hand and said that you can imagine seeing the colors coming off it. I presume this is a radiating, not you, this is me saying this. I presume this is a radiating fountain of magnetic force that you can imagine. Can you please talk about the magnet being a filter? Can you just talk a little about that again?
Well, there's two ways to talk about it. Like I said, I haven't quite, that's why I'm doing my diagram, is because eventually I'm going to get to this part, because I have to see one theory I say to myself is the gravity force that's out here, these particles, right, and the outside of the world, let's say they're green. And then when they go through the magnet,
force?
Right? What?
You said the gravity force?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the gravity is the energy I was talking about, the ball bearings that fill the universe.
Mm-hmm.
The universe just is full of these little quanta that aren't photons, that aren't any magnetons, they're just gravitons, in the sense that they're just little tiny bits of quanta moving the speed of light. You can't see them, but they're out there all the time moving the speed of light. Zillions of them. And they essentially push the Earth into the sun based on being shadowed from the sun shadows the Earth shadows the sun, the two get pushed together. So what I'm arguing is that that field is, say, green, and the magnet is basically, the field energy goes into it, and the two sides of the magnet polarize for a different color. So the green comes out of this magnet blue, right, out of the surface of it. So anything that goes in and comes out this top surface comes out blue, and anything that goes into the magnet comes out this bottom surface comes out red. So that means all these angles, any angle it comes in, and obviously for the inside of the magnet, the same thing's happening, right? The red's converting, shooting red into the blue, and what I'm arguing basically is the blue is taking that, okay, and shooting it out through it. So the real conversion might be just that line between the two, but it doesn't really matter. The point is the energy is polarized, and the polarization is changed, and now this is emitting. So think of it as light, because it's coming out just like light, okay, rays in straight lines coming out of all these surfaces. So think of it as blue light shooting out of this one and red light shooting out of this one. And then when you understand that the blue light, okay, it doesn't like blue light. Okay, so it's like if blue light hits matter, it'll push it away. I mean electrons, let's say. Well, I don't want to get that specific, so I should be able to do this without getting that specific. So I just had another magnet just like this one, and I held it next to it. Okay, where
I'm
they're,
with you. You
right,
haven't lost.
where they're shooting the same color, okay, there's it's already blue, it's reflecting. The energy reflects off of it. And when it hits the opposite color, it gets absorbed. So if you can think of it that way, it's just the difference between being reflected and going straight through. So let's say those are the two options. So blue light goes straight through something that creates blue light, right? And red light goes straight through something that creates red light.
Yep.
But exactly the opposite happens when you turn them around. I think I just said this all backwards. Yeah, I did say it backwards.
Just
Okay.
go over it again.
No, I said it exactly backwards. Okay, the blue is completely transparent to the red. So red light goes right through a blue, and the blue light goes right through the red. So that's why when they're opposite, they attract, and when they're turned around the other way, they're repulsed, because it's all or nothing, right? It's all hate or all love. Well, it's not. That's not even a good way to put it, right? It's either reflected or it's invisible. So it's either so if it's invisible, the outside gravity is going to push them together because it's going to be really strong now because there's no force in between, right? I just converted all the gravity into something invisible in between them. So I've created the blackest shadow you can imagine. All right. So the gravity pushes them together. And then when they're when they're placed in the same position, they're creating a force that's completely reflective, which means that every single one of them imposes acceleration on the other. That's what a reflection does. It imposes acceleration. So the blue is badgering this blue with constant accelerating reflections. This one's reflecting them right back to the other guy. So they're even doubling the force by keep reflecting them back and forth. So if I put two magnets here, I guess what I'm saying is what you should see is the light gets trapped between these two things. It just keeps bouncing back and forth. And that's why when I bring them closer and closer, it gets more and more force because it's reflecting back and forth more and more. There's the same number of bullets keep bouncing off of each other even more rapidly. Because, you know what I mean? It's like they're tennis balls. You could feel like there'd be more pressure. The smaller I make the box, the more pressure I'm going to feel. If that's the way to say it.
No, I think you've done pretty well.
It wasn't perfect, but yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing where I have to think ahead of time because I always mix up the blue is reflecting off of blue and red is.
What's the time? 3:30 in the morning. I think you've got a good excuse.
Yeah, so I do have to train my brain to get that one right.
But this is training for your brain. So when somebody like me comes up and asks you this question, especially at 3:30 in the morning, I wouldn't be able to keep up. So I think you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, well, no, I think I'm getting pretty good at. I mean, sometimes you throw something. It's amazing that once you start to get this, you can start explaining things you never even thought of. Like somebody will ask me something about a subject I know nothing about, and in 20 seconds I can fit it into my system. And I can make it make sense, which is really fun. I mean, that's really fun. When I start talking completely out of my ass, and then when I watch the video again, I say, man, I just pulled that shit right out of my ass. I didn't know fuck about that subject, and I just owned it. I mean, I nailed it.
Yeah,
I love that. That's when this is all worth it. When those kind of moments are just like, oh yeah, that was good.
Well, that's why we're having this conversation because. Hopefully you enjoy it and I enjoy it and somebody else in the room, at least one in those 100 people watching, at least somebody else is going to enjoy this conversation. And that's probably part of the purpose for me. Just want to, I haven't got much left actually. I've got a little bit. So I'm going to bring up Dr. Quantum. I found out something interesting. So that cartoon Dr. Quantum and that movie The Secret.
It's probably produced by the brothers of the Silly Putty and the Illuminati or something, right?
You're not far wrong, actually. You're actually not far wrong. So I'm not going to mention too much of their names, but Dr. Quantum and The Secret, those two movies, both of them were produced by Fred Wolf.
Wow.
The Wikipedia reference mentions quantum mysticism and pseudoscience. And I have a question there. So that Professor Fred Wolf has a website. You might want to go there. You might want to email him some questions. But there you go. He produced those two movies, which are both to do with mysticism and physics. And my next question was, of course, this is of no relation to who we were just talking about, but my question is, how much of science is made up? And actually, a serious question here: are electrons real? Next statement. When you say here it is. So here we go. The other day, I asked you about electrons. When you say electrons are not in orbit and they go up and down, can you explain? I don't understand why they move up and down.
Yeah, well, that's the field energy is never perfect. So that's the whole balancing issue I've brought up before, that if I could theoretically put magnets in a position, okay, like say where they have a magnetic balance. Okay, so
Yep.
they're all opposing magnets. So they're all in the face that oppose each other. Theoretically, I should be able to move this in space and it would maintain, without falling apart, because the tension is between them and all that stuff. But what happens is gravity fucks it up, obviously. But even more so, what fucks it up is that there'll always be some nudge from the environment in one direction that's a little stronger, and one of the magnets will flip over. And once it flips, the whole thing falls apart, right? Because now you have attractive forces instead of repulsive forces, so the whole thing will break down. So that's what I mean by there always being, the field energy is never perfect. So at 1 second, this guy might have, say, if you thought about flipping heads and tails. So you just thought of, okay, on this side it has 50 more heads than it ever had on this side, right? So this one's 50 behind. So it's over the last 10 minutes, it's been nudged a little tiny bit this way. We know over time it's going to go back that way. But you know what I'm saying? The average at any one moment might be a little moving. So it's always moving because the field energy is never perfect. So there's always this movement going on where this thing can't maintain a perfect position. But that's why supercooling turns these things into superconductors, because it gets rid of that noise. See, the more of that noise you start to get rid of as you supercool, what you're basically doing is taking more and more of that field energy and making it passive. You know what I mean? So you're giving it a polarization that's benign. And by doing that, these things can settle into harder and harder positions where they're not moving anymore. And now they're more reliable in how they move. Now they don't move crooked anymore. So what I'm saying is that when this one gets hit hard enough, he'll actually move. And when he moves, though, he's going to knock this guy out because they're repulsive, right? So this one's going to push that one out, which means a new one's going to pop in. Or these four will rebalance at a further distance away from each other. So you get me? So you really have to move these circularly. They're already going to be moved by the fact that they're going to keep jostling and pushing on each other. So the tension between them is essentially the same thing as acceleration, right? Me moving this 1 fraction of a millimeter, in a sense, is the same velocity as long as it keeps going back and forth. You know what I mean? It's real velocity. I moved and then I moved back, and then I moved and I moved back. So it's like alternating current. It doesn't go distance, but by force and power, it looks like it might as well have. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if I jostle back and forth enough time, blah, blah, blah.
So do you think they came up with them being in orbits because they looked at perhaps planets?
Just a minute. I got some wacky message from Windows 10 here. Your device will restart at 3:45. I don't know what that means, but I don't know what device is going to restart. I don't know. My computers are buggy lately, so this is a Windows 10 machine, and I don't know what time is. 3:45. It's gonna. So that's another. Well, yeah, we got 10 minutes, so it's threatening me that it's gonna do some necessary update that I can't stop for some reason. So, but it's about time to go anyway. So 10 more minutes is about right.
Yeah, I've nearly finished my questions for you anyway. So my last question was, do you think they came up with that explanation of them being in orbits because they looked at planets?
Well, I think that's part of it, but it also, like I said, the energy makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really detect them well enough to know if something's actually moving or just bumping the partner. You know what I mean? You can't really see electrons well enough to be able to illustrate any of that, whether they're banging into each other, whether they're blowing on each other. They could be doing lots of different things, and you would see it as movement of electrons, and you could say that whatever the movement of the slowest bit is the movement of the fastest bit, and you'd average it all out, when it could be a lot more complicated. So I'm just saying, yeah, the orbit thing probably comes out of that. They also have some other reasons to say the electrons have momentum. But again, I would argue that their momentum, they're basing it on their mass. So you could argue that anytime an electron absorbs a photon, it gains mass, which is gaining charge, which means they're associating that with speed. But it doesn't necessarily mean it has speed. It just means it could get bigger. So an electron could increase in its size, and they would see that with their instruments as if it's moving faster, even though that's not what the size increase meant. If you get what I'm saying. I'm just saying they're very small things. You can't take a photograph of them, obviously. So I'm just saying they have evidence that would indicate that there's an associated speed, but the only time you really see them move with any kind of speed is when you shoot them, okay, with a voltage, right? So you have to give them a high voltage to shoot them. And so that's not a very good time to take a picture of something, is when you've just electrocuted it, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? It's not a very good time. I'm just saying you can't really tell how fast the electrons are moving when they're moving in a charged stream at this technically close to the speed of light, where they've been degraded so fundamentally. They're moving with a bunch of field energy. So it's like a lightning bolt would be both electrons moving and a bunch of this field force that we're talking about. It's really both. And, you know, being able to tell the stream from the boat in the stream is going to be pretty much impossible, right? Yeah. I mean, you're not going to be able to, I'm just saying they can't tell the electrons from the stream. So I'm just saying, how are they going to know how fast the electrons are going? They're just going to know how fast the stream is going.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the word electron is actually like the word wave, you know? So they've come up with a term that's incorrect for something else because
I think the material functions of these things is solid. So I think an electron is an actual configuration of quanta that was created maybe in the Big Bang or created in suns. You need this high nuclear force to create the quarks. You know, there's elements inside of electrons that I think are solidly, rigidly fixed. They're stuck to each other, and they'll never be broken. You know what I mean? You can't get smaller. Like, say, quarks, I'd almost say quarks are indestructible. And so they're the things bouncing around inside of electrons, which is a stick of maybe 10 quanta that are stuck to each other. Matter is fundamentally different than the force. It's made of the same thing, but clearly matter reacts where the force doesn't.
But see, it's hard for me to take in that, see, these microscopic or subatomic particles are different from forces, because a force is a subatomic particle again, right?
I know, but I'm just saying that I'm saying that the distinction between function is so rock solid and so obvious that this matter stuff does matter. I mean, the matter stuff doesn't act like loose fish. It definitely acts like school fish. And school fish are very different than loose fish. So I'm just saying that I think matter is different in the sense that it still has the same quanta inside of it. They're still fish, but they're fish that are ball and chained to each other. You know what I mean? They're fish that have been squished into each other, so now they're stuck to each other. However you want to think about it, they're lumps of fish, not just fish. That's why they behave. That's why matter can behave different. See, the field fish never do anything in the field. You know what I'm saying? That's why you don't see the gravity, is because they hit each other. It doesn't matter. All that stuff's happening. So I'm just saying, if the school was made of the same exact field energy, nothing could happen. The only reason why something can happen is the matter is different, and now it can interact with the field energy.
Yeah.
It's a subtle difference, but I think it's a real difference.
Okay. I'm mindful of the time. I'm guessing you probably want to go to bed, but I do want to get to one last is it all right to just ask a couple more quick questions?
Yeah, like I said, we got another 10 minutes. I'm just saying, I think the computer's going to crash in 10 minutes. So in 10 minutes, I want to hit the save button just to,
yeah. Might be postpone or something. So I've got a question about magnetism and gravity, and it's a little bit probably of a Mary Poppins type question. I don't know here. So the force of now this is me saying this, not you. The force of magnetism behaves just like a bunch of photons being emitted. I know that could be wrong. The only difference is filtering the magnetism. Can we filter out gravity? Are they going to come get us? So can we filter out gravity somehow?
Well, that's what I'm saying, basically, right? First, what I'm saying is the electron and the proton are the first magnetism. They're creating the first charges that are polarized. So the electron's the blue, the proton is the red of the magnet. So if you understand that, they're individual filters. So electrons are radiating blue, protons are radiating red. So if you understand that right there, so that's where it starts. So they're the real gravity bodies. Well, obviously the neutrons involved also. So I'm not neglecting it for any specific reason. I'm just neglecting it because neutrons are going to be a little more complicated to explain, because obviously it's doing both forces and it's locking protons into impossibly close positions. So neutrons are going to take a little bit more of a geometry to explain. But anyway, the basic idea is you just have this red and blue shit, and the red and blue shit is the one that's reflecting anything that's not it, right? So anything that's not blue, the electron reflects. Anything that's not blue, the proton reflects, right? So as I stated before, gravity is like green. Gravity has every color in it. It has blue, it has red, but it has 98% of it is some other color, if you get my drift, right? So 98% of the gravity is some other color. So 98% of the gravity reflects off of an electron. 98% of the gravity reflects off of a proton. You know what I mean? The same percentages reflect off of both. Well, it's actually 99% for each one, but it becomes 98% when you add them together. So you see what I'm saying? So the gravitationally relevant bodies are actually the things that do this blue-red thing. Anything with blue in it or anything with red in it will be gravitationally heavy. Anything that doesn't have those two colors will be inert to gravity.
All right, I think you've answered the question. I know it's late. I'll have a rewatch of this entire video again, because I think it's.
Yeah, well, I watched them too. It doesn't hurt for me to learn from the conversation either, and rethink what I said and say, I didn't quite get to his point, but most of the time we do pretty good. We hear each other.
I think so. I mean, all of these questions tonight came from all the videos that you've put out and that we've spoken about. Actually, all of these questions tonight have only come from the discussions we've had in the last 2 days. So when we have discussions, look at how much stuff there is to talk to, and I've had to negate some of it. But yeah, look, I do want to finish off with this. I would like maybe you want to go and have a look into that Dr. Quantum and the Secret, because it turns out that when they initially made that secret, it was actually made here in my hometown in Australia. They spent $3 million to produce it, and they made $300 million. So that's why they're probably trying to sell people the quantum thing, because they're making a fortune.
Yeah, it's obviously showy and all that kind of crap. So it's, I see why people invest in this show physics, because it does put on a good show. It's mystery and it makes everything challenging, and people, it humbles them and all that kind of crap, and it makes, these people seem like heroes. It's like an Olympic hero. They did the master equation to figure out blah, blah, blah. And then they did the master this and they mastered that. And it's all this hero talk about how they tamed all these lions, and look at how they're controlling the impossible erratic photon. They're controlling him and forcing him into the accelerators and doing all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. And it's all, of course, a pile of crap. How come they never put a photon in their fucking accelerator? Oh, that's right, because it won't work. That's why.
Actually, you mentioned in that Dr. Quantum video, when I said they put like an eyeball in the cartoon to say when they watched the split. Well, you actually mentioned that they never really even did that. I didn't know that. It sounds like
they've been talking about that since the 40s, right? They made it up in like the 40s, and like this is like this thought experiment. And it was never anything but a thought experiment. Nobody actually did it. They were just saying, well, what if this is really what photons are like, then what if we did this? Wouldn't that mean that the photon would be reading our mind? Because there's no way to escape that conclusion, right? It would have to read our mind, because that's the only way it could do what it's doing. And so it was just a thought experiment, for fuck's sake. And they turned it into a real one. They turned it into we did that. We did the Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
And, and it's true. The cat had written a whole fucking novel, so he obviously wasn't dead. Okay, we never looked, but it's obvious the cat wasn't dead because there's a giant pile of poo inside the box. So the cat wasn't dead 3 months ago, and when we opened the box, he died.
Yeah, right. So I got into that Schrodinger's cat too, and they had physicists, university student in England was talking about Schrodinger's cat as if it was some really good source of information. It's like, this is just total bullshit.
Yeah, it really is nutty that it becomes the fables become reality. You know, Jesus,
Yeah.
the sun becomes God. You know, the sun becomes God. You know.
All right. Listen, mate, I know it's late there. Thanks for staying up to talk to me again. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope I'm trying to challenge you a little bit.
I appreciate you showing up. It was just at the right minute because I was bailing, and so I actually got something productive out of this room. So,
yeah, I tried to come earlier today, but I had to go out. So I was so glad that when I came home, you're actually still online. That I get you actually. I've looked at pictures of Isaac Newton, and it's like, man, you are a physicist. Look at the dude.
It is kind of funny. You know, I never really thought about it until I looked. I said, oh, wait a minute. I do look a lot like Newton, but he was crazy. So I'm just smart. Well, okay.
As a fine line,
we're both crazy, right? Because he lived a mile from the ocean and never saw the ocean, right? This is a guy who figured out tides, figured out all that shit, and he never went to the ocean. 1 mile away.
When's he from, though? 1650 or something? Is that
Well,
right?
I'm just saying he was obviously pretty neurotic. You know, obviously he was the kind of guy who didn't go anywhere.
Hey, I had a look at a video last night on YouTube of Oppenheimer. You should listen to him talk. He's like,
yeah, well, I you know, they're all old interviews, unfortunately. I mean, I really wish you had this kind of stuff, like tape recordings of Einstein or something. It'd be really cool to have that kind of shit. But yeah, it's all so old that it's like, you know, and the interviews are so mushy that they don't mean anything. Like the only interviews I've seen with Oppenheimer are just vague, kind of mushy bomb talk, you know, but nothing really biting.
yeah, it seemed a little bit weird. But anyway, listen, we could go on for hours and have a pleasant conversation, but I'll let you go to bed, mate.
Okay, thanks. And
All right.
likewise to the room, thank you. I don't think I'll be bothering with your comments because my computer's going to do something stupid. And I don't want.
They'll be picking on my crazy looks and the fact that I've got a shirt on.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, you're a little too normal, so you'll get picked on for being. You'll be picked on for being too conventional. Oh, he's such a conventional human. Oh, Christ. It's like what the Martians have on their posters. Like they have, oh, here's a poster of a human. Yeah, it's this dorky guy from Australia.
Yeah, look at that filthy human.
Yeah, this is just average, you know, average. Joe Average.
He's from the planet of the apes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going, mate. See you later.
Likewise.
Thank you.
And thank
Good morning.
you. And
Bye-bye.
till next time and such people of the internet.